That was horrible.
The time has come.
The time has come. I was just about to say the exact same thing.
Well, yeah,
You're so right.
because
the time
we've done this together so
has
many times.
come. It's time again. It's been a whole year.
6 of them.
6 entire years.
6 of the whole year.
And we went 6 years in the future. We've traveled backwards now to your year, 2024, the ending of it. The end of days, but we won't tell you.
So it's actually probably 2025. now.
Yeah.
Because
just
2025
almost.
is like in a week or so.
It's so close. Yeah, that's true, depending on when you'll be watching this. But we are making this video at the end of 2024. It is time. Ladies and gentlemen, we have gone through this entire year watching and slogging through a lot of the less than great horror movies that are out there and stuff.
We've just watched a lot of movies.
We've seen a lot of movies. It has been a year for movies as a whole, actually. 2024, a pretty good year for movies, right?
Okay, but yeah, dude, 2024 was a catastrophe of horror movies.
That's
specifically
fair.
Horror movies. I personally watched 46 just horror movies this year.
Insane.
But that's just no. Okay, let me rephrase it. I watched 46 new release horror movies.
Yeah, that's 2024 released horror movies. And so I think I've only watched like 35, I want to say. So my list is actually shorter than your list, which is kind of crazy because I was watching last year's video and I think my limit was like 27.
That's
and I want to say yours was 30, which is where we were at.
I personally have seen 30 new horror movies this year.
I think I've seen 26 or 27. I can't remember exactly.
So, and most of those are the same ones. So
yeah, which like that you're telling me I'm up a whole like almost 10. You're up what, like way too many.
A lot.
We watched
17
17 more movies than last year.
Yeah.
That's not including other movies we've watched.
Well, and as far as like 2024 movies as a whole, I've watched 76 films. So of 2024 releases, I should clarify that again. But that means that there were only 30 movies that weren't horror that came out this year that I watched.
That's crazy. There were only 30 movies that weren't horror that were released, period, this year. Derek's seen them all.
I've seen every single one of them.
He has seen a lot more than me. There were a couple movies that were on a couple people's lists that Derek checked out I hadn't seen. I don't think
thing for you though.
Are there
too.
any? I think there's like 1 or 2 that I've seen that you have not seen.
Maybe.
But we did it. We have made it through this year, and there are a lot of really good horror movies that we wanted to talk about. So that is our goal today. I am your co-host, Isaac.
And I'm your other co-host, Derek.
And we are the hosts of That Was Horrible.
And I think it's worth mentioning that in the year of our Lord, this is what I was just searching for frantically. Because I was like, I didn't set that up before the beginning of the episode because we are organized.
We are very
Isaac's
organized.
a lot more organized than I am, but that's why we work together.
We're organized people.
We started the year on January 2nd with our first episode at episode number 47. We then released a staggering 40-something more episodes and ended the year at episode 79.
Insane.
We almost hit 80.
We almost got there. But yeah, the style of this one is going to be more geared towards seeing this visually. We will also record this for all of you listening at home. So hi there listening on your radios, and then hi there listening on the YouTubes and such.
Who's there?
This is for both of you. Is anyone on the other side of the camera?
Well,
Who's
you're
there?
saying hi there. That's a dad joke. It's like, hi there.
Hi there.
where?
I'm Dad. Hi, Dad. It's
hi,
me.
Dad.
I'm
hi,
Dad.
I'm there.
And we are the fathers of horror movies this year. Derek, it's been a good time, right? Like, it's sincerely, I'm so happy to be a horror fan in this year.
Me too.
Because I want to say, not to bash our lists last year as movies, but like, I feel like when making the list last year, some of those movies at the bottom of my list were like, real close calls.
Yeah. Well, I remember last year I was sitting in a hotel room in Mexico.
Yeah.
And we had just discussed doing this at all. Like,
yeah, it was a quick thing, actually.
And I was like, okay, I'll get back this day. We'll have about a month to or like 2 weeks to like shoot it and get it all together. And I remember sitting in my hotel room in Mexico. Emily is sleeping soundly next to me, and I'm frantically searching for horror movies to watch to put on my list.
Yeah, because
I didn't know what to add.
And so this year, I feel like we did a little bit better at keeping up with like all of the horror movies that were coming because we knew we were going to be making this video at the end of the year. However, there were still a couple videos that came up. I was like, oh my God, we didn't watch that one.
Yeah, man. No, same. But I feel like for the most part, like I struggled to have a top 10 this time.
Oh, I struggled to keep like what could stay within the top 10.
That's what I mean.
Because last year I feel like I struggled to put things in the top 10. This year I had to like kick a couple out that I was like, I don't know if I feel comfortable getting rid of this one.
The fact that I had to remove M. Night Shyamalan's Trap from my top 10 this year.
So spoiler right now in Derek's top 10, no Trap, not in there, unfortunately. Honorable mentions, maybe?
No, Lady Raven, I have betrayed you, and I am so sorry.
Lady Raven, I have disappointed you, and then you stab yourself with a samurai sword.
It's all over for my lady. Anyway, should we just jump in?
I think so.
Let's remind y'all how it works. If you didn't see last year's video, go watch it and be like, that
Please
movie
do.
came out in 2023.
I also forgot a lot of those came out. I watched it preemptively, and I was like, what? That happened just recently?
It's crazy. But so we're going to roll a little dice here.
Yep.
I bumped the camera.
A little bit of a
fun.
D20.
We're going to roll a D20 because we're huge nerds. And if that turns you off, then you haven't listened to our normal podcast, which you should, and it will get you more excited about us.
Yeah, and if you haven't listened and you're just finding us now, go check it out too, where That Was Horrible.
Yeah.
Find us wherever you get your podcasts.
We're like what would I always call it? Spark Notes meets Mystery Science Theater.
of
is
horror movies, basically.
But we tend to stray towards the ones that you shouldn't watch.
Yeah.
So we take care of it for you.
And so in this one, we're going to be discussing all of the what we deem to be the greatest horror movies of this year, 2024. Ones that and this is the thing, we're just two Joes, right? We're just two guys.
My name's Derek.
He's Derek Joe, I'm Isaac Joe, and we do a podcast called That Was Joe Horrible.
No, that was good. No, that was it.
So really what happens is this is just our personal opinions. We are not by any means the experts of these, but we watch a lot of horror movies. So I feel like we got a lot of good things to say. So we're here to discuss some of our favorites personally, rank them 1 to 10. And so like Derek mentioned, we'll roll a die to see which of us is going to go first. And then
it's fairer than just being like, you go first. No, you go first.
And then please. No, I could never, please. So I mean, I guess it's just time to get into the thick of it, right?
I will mention that all of our reviews are most of these are reviewed on Letterboxd.
Yes.
We do both have our own horror lists on Letterboxd. So if you don't want to listen to us talk for the next hour, you can just go to our Letterboxd.
If you're the type that wants to skip that out to the end or something like that, just go to the Letterboxd reviews and stuff, because we have 10 plus on there too. We have all of our.
I have ranked every horror movie.
Your 47, my 35 up on the list, and
so you did too.
So let's get into it.
Both roll
I guess
some
it's
dice.
time. Let's roll.
And the higher number, not the lower number, we're not playing golf, will do their first top 10. It's me.
Derek goes first with a 15. What did I roll? A 13 something?
All right.
Take it away.
Oh, man.
It's time.
There's the anticipation.
See, I told you.
We've
it's
been waiting an entire year.
We were talking before this. I'm like, I'm nervous to start.
I
this.
wasn't
This is a
nervous
big
until
deal.
right now.
Well, here we
And
are.
now I'm nervous. All right. My number 10 for the year 2024. Sitting at, no, I'm just kidding. Okay. Smile 2 from Parker Finn. I gave this movie a 5-star review on Letterboxd. About to embark on a world tour, global pop sensation Sky Riley begins experiencing increasingly terrifying and inexplicable events. Overwhelmed by the escalating horrors and the pressures of fame, Sky is forced to face her past. This movie rocked our socks off.
It was truly
this movie
a great
was
time.
insane. It was a phenomenal performance, specifically from Naomi Scott, who plays the lead here. She plays the character of Sky Riley going through this whole thing. And what to even say? I mean, this movie terrified me. This movie excited me. This movie was beautiful too, in every aspect, just of the cinematography and homages, but not in the way that Smile 1 was. Smile 1 had those moments of homages, but it took it too far. We've talked in great length about Smile 1, about how that movie copied and pasted. That movie didn't change it at all, right? That took things from It Follows and a bunch of other movies. Smile 2 took those homages and made its own thing out of it, and I really loved that. That's really kind of what I have to say about that one. You'll say more. I'm sure it might be on your. I don't know. I can't say for sure.
What do you mean? That's not on my list. You don't know me, Dad.
I mean, I do. I saw that movie with you. I saw your reactions. But
it was a very good time.
I am so excited to see what comes next from Parker Finn, because he leaves it off for a third one, but also kind of doesn't. And I don't want to spoil it here. I highly recommend you check out Smile 2.
And I believe we do have confirmation of a third one, right?
Yeah.
Also, to the effect,
confused.
not wanting to spoil things. These reviews that we are going to be discussing, we're going to try to leave them as spoiler free as possible, right?
Here.
Especially since they are what we consider to be the best of the year, right? So our encouragement here is to go see these movies, right?
Absolutely.
I hope you go check out all of these movies. I'd say all 20 of them, but I know there's a lot of duplicates on our lists here.
What?
Just depends on who gets to what first, really.
All right, what was your 10?
Sitting at number 10 for me on the top 2024 horror movie ranking, I have put Long Legs, directed by Oz Perkins.
You're so short.
But my legs are long. His legs were short. Mine are long. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars on Letterboxd. So the synopsis here: FBI agent Lee Harker is assigned to an unsolved serial killer case that takes an unexpected turn, revealing evidence of the occult. Harker discovers a personal connection to the killer and must stop him before he strikes again. Whoa. Now this one, it deserves a place in my top 10, but I do want to say it is a little low because the movie was incredibly hyped on the internet.
Yeah.
everybody
So
was on
hyped.
that long legs hype train. And so to me, it made it a little bit tough because like I'm coming at it with like I need to see God when I see this movie, right? Which is tough. It's a disservice. So I tried my best to come at it where it met me. And what did meet me is a really incredible film. You know, this like procedural like FBI agent kind of movie where she's on the tails of this terrifying Nicolas Cage performance in here. And so like there were incredible performances not only by Nicolas Cage, who was a terrifying, scary person. Like I do not know how to put it into words the lengths he goes to be pretty unrecognizable in this movie too. Like he really has a lot of like prosthetics and stuff on his face, and he's got this big old wig and stuff. But the performance as well was just daunting and scary and terrifying. But Micah Monroe as Agent Lee Harker in this is something that really adds to that effect. You could not have a movie like this with just Nicolas Cage doing a great thing, because then it'd just be like, oh cool, there's a good movie. It had Nicolas Cage in it. He did good, but the rest of the movie was kind of meh.
Yeah.
So like the performances of the duo of them, Micah Monroe and Nicolas Cage, was really a force to be reckoned with in this one. They were just kind of this unstoppable duo where it was like, you know, her and her reactions and responses to this evil character. Just it's a deeply unsettling movie. Like literally from the opening sequence, you feel dread. Just dread. It just covers you from the first, like there's a bit of a scare in the opening sequence that goes into the title, and you're like, oh my God, okay. Yeah. I was strapped in. It was one of my favorite opening sequences of a movie this year, I want to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it is so it was overhyped, I would say. No, maybe not overhyped, but just like hyped too much, you know, like go into it just like trying to meet it where it meets you. It is a very good movie with some good scares in it, a great plot that goes into it. For me, it kind of lost me a bit more towards the end. It starts going a little bit more towards the supernatural, which I can't get into here, but yeah, I thought it was a really, really good time.
Yeah.
So that's our top 10.
One thing we forgot to mention at the beginning, we are doing something new this year. We have the That Was Horrible Awards. We're an official awards show now. I just made that up.
Says us. We are official by our standards. I mean, what makes anything official?
Yeah.
We're our own brand, and so it's an
Exactly.
official thing with our thing.
So we have a bunch of different categories. We have Best Scare, Scariest Film, Best Kill, Most Surprising Film, Best FX, Worst Film, Biggest Disappointment, and Best Performance. And these will be placed between our reviews. And since, Isaac, you rolled lower, you can announce who was the winner of Best Scare.
That's right, because this is not like one and the other. This is the two of us came together to
That
decide.
Was Horrible branded.
Yes, this is the two
The
of us.
official congratulations winners.
Congratulations, winner. And the winner for Best Scare goes to the scare in Smile 2, which we have dubbed the Headlight Scare, basically.
A little spoilers there.
Bit of a spoiler here, yeah. There's basically this one terrifying jump scare. There are a few in the movie, but there's this one terrifying jump scare where you see the face of somebody and it lights up. The eyes and the mouth light up like a headlight, and there's this honk of a horn. It comes at you, and it's just, that is of all the movies I've seen this year. Derek is incredibly receptive to jump scares.
Yeah, dude. That movie shot me through the roof.
Yeah, I have never
scene,
seen him jump higher in a movie during a jump scare. Literally like 3 feet out of his seat, he was up in the air.
Yeah, I think I peed my pants a little.
And so in addition to that, like me, I can usually, like, it's not that jump scares don't affect me, but I do not physically react to them quite as much. I reacted to that jump scare.
That's how I knew. That's how we knew we were in.
Yeah, that was the thing. There were some of these where there's a little bit of debate, but that one, Best Scare, hands down, we were easy. That one jump scare and Smile 2. So congrats to Smile 2 for winning that.
Smile 2. Should we
and
roll?
It's time to get into number 9.
Number 9. That's you, baby.
That's me to 16 versus your 11. Take that. All right, number 9 for me, sitting with a 4 out of 5 stars on Rotten Tomatoes, not Rotten Tomatoes, on Letterboxd. It's my reviews. This is my thing. Is Exhuma, directed by Jang Jae-hyun. I'm so sorry if that is a terrible pronunciation of it.
Probably is.
I'm trying my best over here, okay? But Exhuma, a wonderful movie. It is a South Korean horror film, which goes as follows. The process of excavating an ominous grave unleashes long hidden secrets and dreadful consequences buried underneath. This movie, I did not pay a lot of attention to at first. Like, it was kind of living on the outskirts of like the horror socials that I follow and all that kind of stuff. But there was a bit of buzz about it. And I was like, I really like to try to stay well-rounded as a person who, like, you know, takes in horror movies and stuff. I want to see what's outside of the US. Because you know what? We can get a little bored of what's going on here.
Yeah,
like, you find you see a lot of the same tropes, or we're all regurgitating the same stuff. There is something so interesting about taking something like like I'll tell you guys here, this is something a bit of like kind of an exorcism movie in a sense. And so like seeing that through a different cultural lens really changes things. And they do it like it's a very different thing. Like it's really, really neat.
I didn't think about it that way. Actually, I like that a lot.
And I think that's really nice, right? So yeah, I wanted to check this one out. I think it is a beautiful showcase of like important horror historical context with these classic scares. Because that's the thing. It does crazy things within it still, but like the scares are like the best way I could describe them is like classic. It is spine tingling kind of stuff. I never once knew where this movie was going. No, man. Like Derek and I have discussed already, there's a point where directly halfway through the movie, you're like, that could be the end. That could be a concrete ending of a movie that I would be okay with.
Yeah.
Not even like I guess that's how it ends. Huh? Well, that movie wasn't that great. Even if it ended right there, I would have been fine with it.
Oh, yeah.
But then you're like, I still have half of this movie to go. Where could it possibly go from here? And then it just continues to go these crazy lengths and wild ways that I was not expecting, and things that I'm not familiar with either from not watching like a ton of South Korean horror movies, right? Not being aware of the history of and all that kind of stuff, the culture of a ghost story to South Korean culture. It's really, really cool to see what they do with it and what is scary to them. And so I think it brings incredible depth and world building to an exorcism movie, which is not incredibly common. Like I feel like those are pretty cut and dry. Like I honestly skip most exorcism movies. I do not love them all the time.
90% of them.
But yeah, so we typically see a lot of the same tropes, but this was not that. So I thought it was a really wonderful film that really kind of came out of nowhere for me. It was originally sitting lower on my list, and then upon you watching it and really enjoying it, and then coming back to it, I was like, I actually think I liked that movie a lot more than I thought I did.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's my number 9, Exuma.
All right, my number 9 is Heretic, which is sitting at a 4 for me on Letterboxd. Scott Beck and Brian Woods, 2 young religious women are drawn into a game of cat and mouse in the house of a strange man. This one, like, it probably comes as no surprise that this is in my top 10.
Well, why would that happen, Derek?
I mean, if you listen to our review, we have a review posted of this movie. Like, I grew up Mormon. I left the church later in life. It made this movie challenging to watch, challenging to absorb, but also it really, really resonated me. And actually, this movie has spawned conversation within my family, which is something I did not expect.
That's no joke. It's really changing things.
It's
making waves in real life.
Yeah. And I think that's a great thing. And a lot of people, like, this movie is neither anti-Mormon nor pro-Mormon. And I think that was the best way
I think it wonderfully walks the line between, because like, spoiler alert, Heretic is not up in my top 10, so can I piggyback on your little thing here? I really enjoy the fact that I was nervous about them coming in and just I feel like it was going to be an anti-Mormon film just sitting and spitting about why it's bad, but it does not. It really does show light on both sides, which I appreciated.
It absolutely does. And I'll link our review to this one below in the YouTube comments. Go check it out. We say a lot more about it there, and I rant about Mormon culture for a while.
There are a couple of movies on this list that you can find our little not so horrible reviews on which we get quite into depth about what we enjoyed about them.
And I mean, Hugh Grant was great here. The 2 sister missionaries were equally great. This movie is mostly talking, which is why I think I loved it so much. I love those one-room movies where it's just people talking every year. I am so drawn to those movies that are talking. So the fact that this had like an emotional edge to it too, where it was so connected.
Yeah, because last year you really connected to a Brooklyn 45, right? Yeah, because that was a one room, lots of dialogue, right? And so like you have to have some killer performances.
I love gimmicks.
Gimmicks are great
because they let the actors speak for themselves. It's like watching a play, right? You are sitting in a room watching actors act. You're not watching effects. I love that stuff too. Don't get me wrong. My list will make you think I like that more than this, but like, there's something about listening to these characters talk and debate in Heretic that I really loved.
It's the rawest sense of performing, though, right? Like, because like obviously we've not always had cameras and effects and crazy things, right? We started on a stage and stuff like that, right? And as 2 people who do enjoy acting on a stage a couple times, like we really appreciate
a couple times. It's like our main hobby.
when it is like, stripped down to that bare bones kind of stuff, you're right, just like letting the actor perform and just do their thing and like trusting them. A very well written script as well, because I think Heretic was beautifully written.
Phenomenally written. It's funny though, so after we left the theater, I think I was originally going to rate that movie a 3.
Really?
I was really torn. Because it goes some interesting places in its third act that I wasn't sure I felt on. After sleeping on it, after thinking about it, then after talking about it, this movie at one point was my number 5 on this list. It is really resounding.
Our lists have gone all over the place. This is hard to do, especially in a year like this when we've had so many, not even just good, but great horror movies. So it's been a wonderful time.
All right. And then for our that was
Our-
horrible
our
award.
next award. So now you get to announce
Yeah, what
it.
is the award?
No, you do it.
Well, I announce. You say what it is, and I announce the
Oh,
movie.
okay. Scariest film. I see what you. Yeah, I got you.
And the award for scariest film goes to Oddity. We probably both have this movie on our list, so we won't go into it too much here. But
We'll come back to
We'll
Oddity and talk
probably-
about why it was. But Derek, tell me, you were talking to me earlier about like why you would say
Yeah.
this one is the scariest of all the movies we've seen.
So there were a few movies this year, like, well, I mean, there's more than a few movies, but like Alien Romulus, the first Noel, the first
my favorite scary
Omen.
movie, The First Noel.
The first Omen and Oddity were like the three that I was personally fighting between for like scariest film.
You know, for me, weirdly, Long Legs also kind of spooked me a little bit.
Okay.
Not necessarily like in a long-lasting effects, but like driving home that night, I was like, I was a little spooked. Someone was
yeah.
around the corner. I don't know why.
No, I get that. I actually felt that way with that one too. But we talked a lot about it. This is one we debated a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And we both agree, though, that Oddity left us with that lingering feeling of fear. This, out of every movie that came out this year, caused me to have sleeping issues.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't get to sleep when I got home because of this movie. There are some horrifying shots in this movie that are
Really,
so
though.
well done that just really, really scared you.
And it is really just it's a movie that sits with you, because that's another thing too, is like we're talking like long lasting dread kind of feeling too, because I think jump scares and stuff like that are pretty
Yeah.
short lived, right? While I think some of them
They
can
fade.
be great. I mean, obviously we talked about the Smile 2 jump scare. That was really great and
Yeah.
impressive. I think there is something to be said about the movies that sit with you and you cannot get rid of. You know, you can't shed that movie because the fear has like set itself within your bones. And I really feel like Oddity did a wonderful job with that.
Absolutely. All right, should we move to number 8?
Time for number 8. Let's roll.
A dice.
Well, I seem to have missed the bowl there. Let's
That's really
try that
embarrassing.
again.
We can cut that in post, but we won't.
No, it's great. I believe my 15 trumps your 17. My 12. You're 12.
Well,
I
mine was a
beat
3 and you bumped it. And
Oh.
it went to 12.
Okay, so I still win. All right, so sitting at number 8 for me, rating at a 5 out of 5 on Letterboxd, I put Lisa Frankenstein, directed by Zelda Williams. So, like, I know there are a lot of people that did not put this on their top 10. For me, it's an Isaac movie, and that's something like that I want to make clear in this whole thing, right? Like, these
yeah.
are movies that resonate with
Very
us
subjective.
very much, right? Like, you know, Heretic resonates with Derek very well because he is a fan of Mormonism.
Good old Mormonism.
He is an ex-Mormon is the point, right? And so, like, this movie really rocks my world. So let's
Because you're an ex-Frankenstein.
because I'm an ex-Frankenstein. Thank you. I'm an ex-Lisa, actually. A misunderstood teenager and a reanimated Victorian corpse embark on a murderous journey together to find love, happiness, and a few missing body parts. This one, just the vibe of it, I cannot shake. I think it is a wonderful film. It's just, it's very fun to watch. I was just elated as I was watching it at the theaters, and like, I'm glad we are making movies like this. I'm really glad we are bringing horror comedies back into the conversation. I feel like they get a lot of flack for not being like real horror movies, but this one was a delight. It really feels like it's an immediate cult classic is the vibe that I got from it.
Oh,
I really
absolutely.
love the use. They're not afraid to use bright colors and fun practical sets to tell this zany out there story about this girl who's like sad and depressed about like her life, and she happens upon this like reanimated corpse from this graveyard nearby, and then she takes him in and like tries to make him a normal person. Like, it's just, I just loved it. And of course, I obviously have a soft spot for a Frankenstein story, so that automatically gives it 20 points in my book.
ex-Frankenstein yourself.
Being an ex-Frankenstein myself, exactly. Thank you. But it's simply a great time. It's hilarious. It's strangely heartfelt at times
yeah.
too. Like, there's actually this really touching moment between Catherine Newton's character and her sister towards the end of the movie that I'm like, that's actually like really touching. It's not just a comedy, fun, weird time the whole time. There were some heartfelt moments in there. And then it is also shockingly brutal in a couple moments. Like, nothing incredulously gory or anything, but like, if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. There was one moment I was just hands up in the air like, I can't believe we're actually doing this. The soundtrack is also incredibly fun in that one too.
Yeah. I love that movie. That's not on my top 10,
Yeah.
but I also really, really loved it.
No, totally. It elicited very real responses and reactions to
I thought
me
Zelda
each
Williams
time
did
I
a
viewed
great-
it. Zelda Williams, yeah.
Yeah, Zelda Williams, she did a great debut as a director.
Yes, this
right?
is her first time, daughter of Robin Williams.
Super excited to see what else she comes up
I
with.
am also eager to see. It was also had the writer of Diablo Cody, the writer
yeah.
for Jennifer's Body.
Yeah, the famous video game Diablo.
Yes, exactly. Writer of Diablo. But yeah, Lisa Frankenstein, great time. Loved the vibe, the colors, all of it was just right.
Yeah, it was gorgeous, and it definitely was. Like, I felt like when watching that movie with you, I was like, this movie was made for Isaac.
Yes, exactly.
Like,
I hope it was fun to
everything
watch it
about-
through the lens of Isaac.
Well, like,
a kid in a candy store.
I enjoy all those things too, but like those are your vibe. And I was
Yes.
just sitting here, it's like every time there was something green or purple on the screen, I was just like, dude, what is she doing? What?
Give me more green.
Hey, Zelda Williams, Isaac's waiting for you.
We live in a world where there are too many movies that are so dull and lifeless in their color palettes and their lighting and stuff. And I'm so glad we have a movie like this and some other ones in this year too that like we're not afraid to give us bright things, please.
Absolutely.
People like color. Did you know?
Well, is this going to be black and white?
Yes, you're right. Shoot.
Give us some color right now, then take it away.
Okay, it's gone.
You're going to have to do that later.
Now I have to edit that. Great. Thanks, Derek.
All right, my number 8 was Exuma
Oh.
from Young Ye-hoon, I think.
Sure. Yeah.
I Googled it because I didn't want to be wrong.
Listen,
I'm
we are
probably
making
wrong.
an attempt. I apologize to anybody.
I feel awful. I'm actually a huge fan of South Korean horror. I remember I showed you Parasite for the first time.
That's
You
true.
Saw that movie.
I hadn't seen it before
and
that.
Loved that.
Great movie.
But this movie was a huge surprise for me. I actually tried a couple times to start this movie and couldn't get super into it. And then I just was finally like, no, I know this movie will be for me. I know it will hit off. And then I literally just made it past the 8-minute mark and was in. So I just had to watch past 5 minutes apparently. And it was
But you got there.
But I got there. And like we were talking about, like that halfway mark when you find where this movie is going was so good. And without spoiling it, it took something that is in like a lot of anime and video game media. And how do I say this without spoiling it?
It's
Because I
tough.
don't want this movie to be spoiled. I want everyone to experience this. Even though I spoiled it for Emily because I was so excited. I'm such a dick. But my point is, it took something that is a trope in a lot of anime and a lot of video games and took it to the mainstream in live action that was so effective.
It worked incredibly well.
They made something that is kind of not scary, but should be scary.
Yes.
Horrifying.
Made it scary as it should be, right?
Yes.
They're like, this thing isn't scary enough. It's going to be scary again
Which
now.
it's so crazy to me. And if you've seen the movie, you know what we're talking about. And if you haven't, go seen it. Like, I didn't see it coming, first
No,
off.
absolutely
And then as
not.
soon as it's there, all I could think about was how amazed I was. They took this something that has been destroyed by Western media and made it so scary.
I mean, took it back into its own hands, right?
Yes.
They're like, we're the originators of this.
It kind of felt like the director and creators here were like, hey, fuck you, Western media. We want this to be scary because this is scary to us.
It's pretty similar.
This is scary to everything we
Absolutely.
experience.
It's similar to like when Wes Craven did like the original Nightmare on Elm Street, and then so many are made without him that he finally came back for like the new Nightmare, and he's like, fuck you guys, I'm going to do Freddy right again.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I love
You've had
that.
fun playing with my thing. I'm going to fix it now.
I mean, it really does feel like that. It feels like this team from South Korea was very much like, no. You guys don't understand. You're making games about this.
You're doing it all wrong.
But even they are making games about it. Like, I want to talk about it so bad. Maybe we should do a video.
We'll have to just talk about Exuma.
Just so I can talk
You
about it.
mentioned to me, wasn't there like an incredible amount of like practical effects used in this movie
Yes.
too?
Yeah, the entire movie was done on location. They didn't use one soundstage for this movie. And again, if you've seen the movie, that is incredible.
It's incredibly impressive.
Like, there is an entire scene where a tree is on fire, like emitting smoke, and you can feel it, that it is lit and like, oh my goodness, I could gush about this movie. This is another one. This was number 4 for like a good solid half day because I was like, that movie was so good.
This is my favorite part about doing this video at the end of each year, though, is like when we get so just gushy about a movie. It's just like, this movie just really worked for me.
It really, really worked for me. And I think part of the reason it worked for me, I'm not a huge exorcism fan.
Yeah.
But I'm a huge mythology horror fan.
And there's a huge
and
amount
there's
of that
a
in
lot
this.
of that in this movie. Oh, that's probably too big of a spoiler, but that's okay. Go watch it. Go watch it. Anyway, and that was Exuma.
And on that note,
so now we have
best kill.
it goes to the yoga kill from
In a Violent Nature.
I forgot what the movie's called.
I thought you were just hanging it for me. No, you just straight up forgot.
No, I just
I feel
wrote
like
yoga.
every time we've talked about this movie, you're like, what the hell is that movie called?
Well, it's because it's a long title, and I keep trying to call it like I Know What You Did in the Forest.
I am excited, though, that we got a chance to talk about In a Violent Nature because I don't believe it's on either of our top
it's not
10
on
lists,
mine.
but it was still a pretty good movie.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
If you're not familiar about it, basically the entire premise of it is like, what if Jason from Friday the 13th had his own movie where we see everything from his perspective instead? So we're following the killer killer throughout the entire movie.
Yeah.
There were some gnarly kills in this movie, but none more gnarly and grisly and just wowie shocking than, I mean, like, can we tell? What
I don't think we should really talk about it. Just Google yoga kill if you want to watch it. To put this in
intricate.
perspective, though, this is what shocked us the most when we were coming up with our nominees.
Yes,
I guess for these categories.
We should have done that. Be like, and the nominees are.
I actually had that thought when we started, but it's okay.
Terrifier 3.
But yeah, that was the thing, right? In a year where a Terrifier movie released,
Which
Terrifier
is
3.
known for their insane gore that really pushes the boundaries.
And I mean, like, the shower kill from that movie is definitely like in second place,
Oh,
or even
absolutely.
the rat kill is in like
I would say the rat kill probably
definitely
for me.
Definitely second place. This one.
This got it though.
What
It is-
happened?
It is so out of especially I think it's another thing. It's in broad daylight.
Yeah.
It's just the two, like the killer and the person, standing out on like this cliffside. You would think is immediately, oh, you're going off the side of that cliff. No. Not first.
You go watch
Not
it.
before you get turned into a pretzel. Okay.
Hey, spoilers.
Hey, it's called a yoga kill. It's my favorite move. It's upward pretzel.
When I go to Hoagie Yogi, I don't order a pretzel.
Hoagie Yogi, my favorite yoga place. They also sell pretzels.
They also I think they actually do. I don't know.
Is that a real place?
Yeah, Hoagie Yogi.
I thought you were just
think they're
messing
close. No, there's one left in Lagoon.
That's
the,
crazy.
The Disney of
I thought
Utah.
you were messing with me. I thought you just pulled this bullshit name out
Nah,
of nowhere.
Hoagie Yogi kicked ass, dog.
All right, so that is our winner for that one. Best kill. Should we move on to
do
number
it.
7? Time to roll.
Number 7.
Well, I got an 8, so your 12 beats me. So take it away. Number
Take that,
7.
Punk. All right, number 7 is
Going back.
Oddity by Damian McCarthy, and I gave this a 5 on Letterboxd. I think actually the rest of my movies are.
Yeah, I
5s.
think from here on out, I'm at 5 stars across the board.
But I'm still gonna say it because it matters. You know what you should do when we're recording? Note for Isaac later. You should put our little review up.
Oh, it's already. That's locked up in the dome.
my
See
5
that right
stars,
here?
like,
There it is.
There's Derek's review, or is that your brain? What are you pointing at?
It's my brain.
This is fun.
It's my
We
brain,
should-
and now
we
it's
should
the
always
review.
record everything so I can make you put things on the screen. What's
This
in
is
my
all just
fingers?
homework for Isaac.
Fingers. Ooh. It's probably gonna be like my head saying, "What's in the fingers?" You're gonna screw with me or something.
So
anyway,
Oddity.
A psychic medium attempts to uncover the truth behind her sister's murder at the site of the crime. This movie scared the shit out of me.
It's scary, guys. Goodness.
But really, like, what it came down to is that it is a really good story. It has fun surprises. It has good scares. It is a awesome look at the occult in a different lens. The idea of having a blind woman as your main character. I mean, it's been done before in like Wait Until Dark, and there's other things that has been done in, but the way they did it here was genius.
Incredibly well done. And it is not like her defining trait either,
No,
which I
yes.
adore about that.
She is first and foremost like an occult witch, essentially, right? And you learn that from the first opening shots. That's not a spoiler, but they use this clay golem in the most horrifying ways. Like, I can't describe to you how terrifying this clay thing was.
just sitting there,
Just
menacing.
Doing the scariest thing it did was nothing. And that is so effective.
Absolutely.
Like, but I mean, even before that is introduced, there's an entire scene with a tent that it puts you in the seat of your seat.
They're doing
you
one of
are
those things
curled in a ball.
It's a setup kind of thing where there's a camera set up and it flashes when there's movement, and
Oh,
so
yeah.
like they set that up, and then things just start happening. You're like, oh Lord, that's
Oh,
gonna
here
come
we
around and
go.
be terrifying.
And I will say, like, out of all the movies we watched this year, this is one of 3 that I was curled up in a ball in my seat. And like, we go and see these movies like late at night most of the time. We call them our late night flicks or what. I don't we don't have a name for it. We're stupid. But like, I was fully curled up in my seat,
100%.
chewing on my shirt. Like, I reverted back to childhood. I was scared out of my mind.
It was
That's
it was wonderful. For me, sitting at number 7, I put Late Night with the Devil. Sitting at a 5 out of 5 stars on my Letterboxd review, directed by Cameron and Colin Cairns. In 1977, a television broadcast goes horribly wrong, unleashing evil into the nation's living rooms. And it's a simple idea.
Yeah.
And that's all it is. And it is set just within this TV set. They don't go other locations with it. It is simply on location on the set of a TV show. They go backstage a couple couple times. I really love they do this really interesting thing where like it is like you were watching it on a TV, so there's a little bit of film grain around the camera and stuff like that when you were watching what was shown to audiences. Then they cut to like commercial break while they're figuring out stuff backstage. It's in black and white when they do that.
I love that.
That's such
It
a
was
neat
so
effect.
cool.
I was like, I don't know like what it was about that made them decide to do that, but it was really, really neat, a neat way to show things. But I thought it was a truly unique feeling story that masterfully captures the vibe of a 70s late night TV show, like, and twists that in many fun, horrifying ways. I mean, like, to put it simply, it's a variety show of terror.
Oh, yeah.
Because like that's basically what like those late night shows are, right? Like, let's bring on this fun guest, and now we'll do this and we'll do that.
Yeah.
It's just like, here's this terrifying thing, and then we're upping the ante, and then we keep going crazier with it, unleashing this underlying story of some occult shit. And like, I can't tell you too much about it, but it's really fun. But I love that they really found fresh ways to implement found footage with incredible performances that made it feel so real. It could have been a biopic. Like, it honestly could have been like, and David Dastmalchian, I've never known how to pronounce his name. Dastmalchian. However, yes, that one. He is electric in this movie. He so completely embodies the role of this like talk show host who's got this little bit of a troubled past, and like he's another one of my honest like top performances of the year, just completely phenomenal, just being lost in this character here. I thought he did really good, and it is a purely shocking movie. Like each time you think you've seen their limits, they continue to push that in wonderfully scary ways. Every time I'm like, I'm curious to see like how far this gets. You know, obviously there's some. It's gonna like this TV show's gonna go off the rails. Where are we gonna go? And then they do some crazy things. I'm like, I did not have that on my bingo card.
Wait.
I was not ready for them to go that direction with it. But it was a truly incredible time. I really loved Late Night with the Devil.
Love that movie. And the most surprising.
What was the most surprising winner? The most surprising movie goes to Abigail, actually.
Abigail.
This movie I was looking forward to. I was like, I think this will be a good movie, especially like with the cast they had in it. Like, it was looking pretty good. I trusted it. But then I was met with what I wanted and so much more than I was ever ready to see. And so like it was a surprise just because it was so much better than I was expecting, and so much better than I was ready for.
Yeah, me too. This movie blew me out of the water. Emily wanted me to say that this is actually her honorable mention from the year. She loved this movie.
Wonderful movie.
I'm right there with her. I mean, we actually watched this one twice. The funnest thing you can do with this movie, and I've experienced this, is show this to someone who knows nothing. Because if they haven't seen it, I did this with my sister-in-law and my brother-in-law, and I sat them. Me and Emily sat them down, and we said, hey, do you know anything? Have you seen any trailers or anything? They're like, no, what is this movie?
Imagine.
And watching them try to figure out the twist. I'm not even going to spoil it, because just in case you don't know.
Yeah.
I don't want you to know.
It, please.
Like, it is so good and is so delicious. I mean, the trailer unfortunately spoils it, right?
Yeah.
So if you've seen the trailer, you know.
I know.
But like, they had to see the trailer, and watching them discover who Abigail is and what is all going on.
It's
it was
incredible.
So fun. It was delicious. So yeah, I mean, for that reason, I think it's the most surprising.
It is.
Sure.
It was a shock.
I did not
to
expect
see.
to love that movie as much.
Yeah, I expected to like it, just not as nearly as much as it actually came out to be. So wonderful work with Abigail there. And with that, we are on to number 6. So
Number
let's get a rolling. Well, that's 11 versus my natural 20.
Oh, look at you getting a crit.
Which is a wonderful way to segue from our most surprising, because sitting at my number 6 is actually Abigail.
Oh, look at that.
Directed by Tyler Gillett for me. Tyler Gillett and Matt Bettinelli-Olpin. Wow, they got some interesting names and directors this year.
They do.
Sitting at a 5 out of 5 for me on my Letterboxd ranking. A group of would-be criminals kidnaps the 12-year-old daughter of a powerful underworld figure, holding her for ransom in an isolated mansion. Their plan starts to unravel when they discover their young captive is actually a bloodthirsty vampire.
Spoilers for
that is enough premise for me to be like, all right, I'm in. You kidding me? A ballerina vampire terrorizing this group of people that kidnapped her. Like, really just like getting what they deserve, I guess. I was super here for it. The ensemble of this movie is really what made it for me. Like, I think if you got a wonderful little vampire ballerina, that could be a fun thing too. But the ensemble of characters here, including actors like Catherine Newton up in the mix again, Dan Stevens, Melissa Barrera, like they give us what is most important in almost any horror movie, and that is characters you care about, right? That is a huge thing that I feel like is kind of a misstep in a lot of horror movies when they don't understand that is what you need to pay attention to, right? It's like, to go off on a very weird tangent here, the Halloween movies, the many remakes of them, stuff like that, they really focus on Michael Myers as like the most important thing. What's most important in those movies is actually Laurie Strode, Jamie Lee Curtis. That's what makes the original Halloween such a great movie, is having this one character to really root for, to connect to want to succeed and get out of the situation. We have watched far too many horror movies where it's just like, they're just monster bait, right? They're just here just to be killed. The Friday the 13th movies really started going that direction with all of those. And so I really love that this movie gave us not one, not two, but like an ensemble of characters that even the despicable ones I really liked.
Oh yeah, I liked them to be despicable.
Exactly, right? They did a great job. They were also hilarious. Like, it is weird to say this movie is pretty dark in some moments, pretty grisly in some moments. It's fucking hilarious. It's so funny. I loved it. But there is also, to talk about the ensemble cast, we have to talk about the truly jaw-dropping performance from Alicia Weir as the titular vampire character, as Abigail, right? Especially after just recently seeing her in the Netflix musical adaptation of Matilda. She plays this lovable little girl who sings about, her life, and it's just, go watch Matilda. That's another fantastic movie. But she just completely pivots. Whoever her agent is a goddamn genius. Oh, yeah. For being like, you did this sweet, loving, like family-friendly movie that is a musical. You sing and it's great and lovable. Now let's have you be this like horrific, like throat-ripping monster in this movie. And she destroyed it. Oh, she was fantastic.
Absolutely nailed it.
Another one that goes up there and like some of my favorite performances in the year. And there's a huge credit to that just for the fact of her age. She's like a young kid actor, right? And she is crushing it. So props to you, Alicia, for doing a wonderful job in this movie. It is shockingly gory, which was honestly a happy surprise to find when you felt like they probably played itself with such a young villain in that one. Because that's always like me as a person who thinks about how movies are made and stuff like that. I'm always like, I hope this wasn't too much for her being a kid, but they were not afraid to have her do some crazy things in this movie with the gore and the lengths that they would go to us. But this movie is pure fun. It is everything about it was an adrenaline rush of laughs and excitement that left me eager for more. This one, when it came out, was like, honestly, I'm like, I don't know, guys, this might go up to number 1 just because it is such a fun time.
Well, it's one of the only movies on my list. This actually isn't on my top 10, but it was on there a bunch. Yeah, and it was it was on my top 10 until like 2 days ago.
Yeah, no, it deserves its place up on this list.
But what I was gonna say is that it was one of those that I revisited. It's one of the only movies on this list that I revisited.
And it's one of those movies where it's like, I struggled with where to put it on this list because there are movies that I would argue are like better as a whole movies, but also me personally, I love movies that are fun. And this movie is such a fun time.
And fun to show people. Yeah. Fun to experience.
I know, I really want to show
this movie with people.
Yes, that's really one of the best ways. It's not one of those movies where it is only enjoyable with other people, but it is made more so enjoyable with friends and loved ones. Yeah. So what are you sitting at? What's your
number 6 is Longlegs. I gave this a 5 on Letterboxd. I am a huge I'm big fan of serial killer stuff, and so this movie was immediately attracting me. And I remember when we were walking in the movie, I was like, Isaac, I have a feeling this is gonna be my number 1 movie.
Yeah, you were really
I was so pumped.
You were really feeling like it was gonna skyrocket up to the top.
I was so pumped. Unfortunately, it's not my number 1, but I mean, it is still number 6.
Yeah, 6 is pretty high
out of almost 50 movies. We can talk about Nick Cage all day. Micah Monroe gave that phenomenal performance. We just talked about it. But this movie really popped off for me in every single way. The serial killer stuff was great. The occult stuff was great. The religious stuff, the cinematography, it was just all top notch. Osgood Perkins did such an Osgood Perkins job. I really, really loved it. And all of the stuff with the doll and the spirits. And I mean, I know it lost you a little bit at the supernatural stuff, but that's what pulled me in. I loved it. I loved that it went supernatural. I really, really dug it. And people say it's the scariest movie of the year. I disagree. I do agree it was overhyped, but I also think that was a huge selling point for the movie.
Totally.
And a lot of people saw this movie for that reason. I'm sure you watching there's a good chance you've seen this movie. And if you haven't, well, I highly recommend it. Anyway, that's that one.
That's Longlegs. On to our next category. Who's announcing? Am I announcing?
Well, you went first, so it's me.
Okay, so best effects goes to
Alien Romulus.
Alien Romulus.
It's the first time we've talked about this so far.
I am surprised actually, because when do I get weirdly in my head about making a list like this, and I'm like, what is everybody else saying? Am I really stupid for thinking this movie deserved the top spot? There are There are a lot of lists actually that do not have Alien Romulus up
I've
at their
noticed
top.
the same thing.
Which is kind of sad because I think it is an incredible horror installment this year.
Phenomenal movie.
But it deserves the award for best effects because there is something in an interview, maybe even multiple interviews with director Fede Alvarez, where he says, if it could have been practical, we made it practical.
And you feel it. Like, there is something so horrifying about the sets alone in this movie. I mean, there are some things about this movie that were questionable, and that just doesn't matter because the movie was so enjoyable, and the FX in this movie, like when they're just walking through those halls, and then of course the creatures,
it just builds this
like,
huge sense of atmosphere, which is something that I think a lot of movies that struggle to attain. And there are a lot of movies we've yet to talk about that really get this great sense of atmosphere and world building, world setting. And that is something that the original Alien did such a phenomenal job with, was kind of lost along the way with the subsequent Alien movies. So this one really brought it back. And that is hugely in part to the effects that they did, both the CG and the practical effects that they did for this. Having an actual person in a real alien. They also had a lot of like animatronic puppeteered
so good.
alien costumes, which are so great because like it makes it easier for an actor to react to something like that, right? It's rather than like, okay, here's this tennis ball on a stick. I want you to react like it's a scary thing.
And I mean, that is necessary in some aspects of horror and movies, but I love that they made the decision to not do that.
Absolutely.
And it really shone through.
Yeah, so Alien Romulus for best effects. And now we are on number 5.
I roll 6.
It was a 7, yeah, but then I knocked it. And so mine is higher than that, so I get to talk about my number 5 with Smile 2, directed by Parker Finn. For me, it is a 5 out of 5 movie. This one ranked a little bit higher than me. This one actually was living closer to like the 4 and 3 range for a little bit. And after sitting on it, I had to like take other movies into account. That's the tough thing. All of these movies are great. All of them are wonderful. I love them to bits. That's why they're on this list. But like, it is such a struggle, especially in these top 5 ranking. Like, where do these movies sit? What made this movie better than this other one? But this is really good. This movie really made me fall in love with the Smile world. Like, to be completely honest, I did not care much for Smile 1 at all, save for like the biggest scene near the end, which is what most people talk about when they talk about Smile 1. I might go rewatch it maybe and check it out. And this movie made that possible, though, made me want to rewatch it. This sequel was bigger and bolder in every way that it needed to be and truly impressed me. It just really, I don't know what it was, but I was sitting in the movie theater and they played the trailer, the very first trailer for Smile 2, which shows like, Sky Riley is the pop star. She's on stage. And I was like, this is the direction they're going with it.
We were shocked. I remember that conversation.
But it is such a genius idea to be like, okay, we take this pop star who is incredibly under the eye of the whole planet, right? She's this global star. And so for her to be struggling with this demon and trying to hide that from the world is like such a great idea. I'm like, that's the direction this needed to go. Because honestly, when they announced a Smile 2, I was like, well, that sucks. Why are they doing that? I wish they weren't doing that. And now
we saw how much money it made.
Now I'm so happy that they did, really, though. And Naomi Scott truly gives the performance of a lifetime as a pop star under the gaze of the whole world trying to battle this demon that has made its way into her life at a most inopportune time, if I can say that, right? Like, so many layers to her performance, and you truly feel that long-lasting effects of her trauma in every scene that she's in. Like, she is such a multifaceted, she just does a wonderful job in this movie. Also, she does an incredible job literally performing the songs in this movie. I'm so sorry, good. Lady Raven, you did a wonderful job in Trap.
Don't bring up Trap right now.
But yeah, there are incredible songs from this movie I would actually go back to and listen to again. I'm not super into pop music, but these songs slap. Certified club bangers. Honestly, go find Sky Riley on Spotify.
I've talked about this before, but there's a song on the soundtrack for Smile 2 that I was listening to the next morning, and there's like a jump scare built into one of the songs.
Into the song.
And it scared the living crap out of me, dog.
And honestly, the jump scares really got me. I often find jump scares to be weak and an easy scare for most movies, but this film utilized them perfectly. They really put us into the terrifying perspective of being in Sky Riley's position, right? Being terrorized by these nightmarish visions when you least expect it. She wasn't ready for them, and neither were we as an audience. But yeah, honestly, like, this one fired off on so many cylinders for me. Really enjoyed it. And like, I'm really shocked to say that this one made it so I'm like, okay, if they make a third one, I'm here for it. I am ready for the next one. Parker Finn, I am so sorry that I doubted you with Smile 1, but you really got me with this one.
Yeah, he came through.
Yeah, so your number 5?
My number 5 is Late Night with the Devil. Woo! Kane's brother. I think we like almost switched.
Yeah, a little bit.
A live television. Oh, we already did that. I love gimmicks. As we talk about a lot,
love me a gimmick.
Love gimmicks, and one room gimmicks specifically. This one was quite a one-room gimmick, but kind of.
I would argue it was. It counts, yeah.
But David Dastmalchian,
yes,
it's great to you. And then
listen, you're a wonderful staple in the horror community. I love you so much. I'm sorry I can't say your name right.
But the idea to take an entire late-night television show and make that a horror movie is genius.
It's genius.
This is the kind of plot that makes me salivate and wish that I had come up with it first.
It's the kind of thing that gives me hope for the future of movies and horror.
It's so original.
Yeah, because we've talked about how like we might be running out of ideas and we're just going to keep having to like push the grotesqueness and do things like Terrifier 3 to make good horror movies. No, you just have to be creative like they were in this one. You just have to be
creative. And they really, really were. And I loved the directions they went with it. The performances were all like, even when they were slightly campy, they were still so fun to watch.
In the best
and still
ways.
Scary. And there's so much practical in this film too that it was just so good. Like, I don't know, I will gush about this movie over and over and over. It really worked for me on every level. I loved the suspense that was built, but I also loved just watching it from a viewer's perspective, and like it's almost like a documentary about this night that was
it's really fun. It is so also fun the way they shoot it. It is like we are a viewer watching the television show, right? But then it goes into black and white. I guess that's a good way to put it. It's kind of like documentary style, where we get the behind the scenes look of what went on that night, the night that all this terror happened. And it was just a great time.
It was really good.
So our next award here, we are looking at the worst film of the year. We watch a lot. Our whole podcast is based around watching what is deemed as, worst of the worst horror movies, sitting down really low rated on this. So we watched a movie. We actually did a whole episode about this one. So Derek, who is the winner of the worst film of 2024?
Worst film of the year for 2024 is Mousetrap.
Mousetrap. Okay, listen. Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey came out. It came out, and we've decided, okay, now that these things are coming into the public domain, it'll be a really fun idea to take it and move it into a horror setting. This proves that does not have to happen all the time. We don't need to do that with every single character.
No.
We can't all be Blood and Honey, unfortunately.
We really can't. And to just try it's fine. Yeah. But guys, maybe don't. This movie just tried so hard, but also just failed.
It didn't
in every way.
Didn't try sometimes too.
It's
just
it really didn't.
It's one of those things that I expected Blood and Honey to be and continue with Blood and Honey 2, where I was expecting them to be like, all they're gonna have to offer us is a movie that is like, oh look, it's this character, but he's scary now, and then not give a shit about making a good movie beyond that. They don't have any good ideas besides that fact. Honestly, this character is hardly Mickey Mouse at all, save for the mask that he wears.
Yeah.
That is literally all that connects him to the character. If they had made any attempts to try to make him something more like Steamboat Willie, it would have been maybe a little bit better, but there was just no attempt made even a little bit.
None.
So yeah, sorry, Mousetrap.
That's enough about Mousetrap.
We've talked enough about that movie.
We want, go listen to our episode about that. We'll link it below.
Let's move on to number 4.
We watched, number 4. I mean, you rolled a 3, so there was no way I was going to lose that one.
Okay. So Derek, start us out. Number 4.
Alien Romulus, with a 5-star review from me on Letterboxd. Fede Alvarez, the writer of our number 1 movie last year, Evil Dead Rise.
It's true.
While scavenging the deep ends of a derelict space station, a group of young space colonists come face to face with the most terrifying life form in the universe. Alien was so good. It was so genuinely scary. It was tense. It was definitely one of the more frightening movies of the year, but it was also just such a freaky good time. Like, there were so many moments of awe and shock and excitement in this movie. I just want to gush about all of them, but I want you to just watch
so happy, right? Just like, especially as Alien fans, right? Like, it was so great.
There isn't really much to add to it because a lot of what made this movie great was the FX, right? But the performances from the main 2 actors in this movie were so good.
Oh, wonderful.
I don't remember his name. Please forgive me. The guy who played the robot.
He's talking about David Johnson.
David Johnson is his name. He was outstanding. There were moments where he would flip between being happy and being evil that were just so captivating.
The shift, the way that he acts both of those sides of the one character worked incredibly well.
They were
and the way
so
they contrast
fun.
with each other made each one even better somehow.
And this movie really did have like a lasting effect too. There were certain scenes where you would just like stop breathing and then you would think about it. And then of course the famous final moments of this movie that are
That was
going to
a
go
shock.
down in history. And I really, what else do you say?
It's
it made
hard,
me,
right?
It did what it should have done, which made me want to invest more time into the Alien franchise.
Oh,
I've seen a
totally.
good amount of them. I haven't seen all of them, but it made me want to go rewatch all of them and just get immersed in the world. And I've heard people say like that it didn't fit into the Alien canon.
I
and
disagree.
and I mean, a lot of people disagree, but a lot of people agree, right? I've heard it both ways. And I think that that's good. I think that it's good that it created discourse.
Yeah.
Right? I think
Got people talking.
the movie as a whole, though, you can't argue was fantastic.
Yes.
Every movie has plot holes. Let's just enjoy the movie.
Right, that's the thing. Like we're here for. It's a fictitious movie about aliens in space, right? Like, quit getting hung up on like the logistics of certain things, right? I think that's just like just disappear into this world for a while, right? Just enjoy yourself here. But I do think I want to piggyback on what you were saying about how like it made you want to go like invest more time in the other Alien movies. I think that is the mark of a truly great sequel to anything. Is like I think a really bad sequel can make it like you suddenly like the original less now. Like it ruins it for you. This one only elevated it and made me want to go check out more things, which makes it a great sequel.
Well, and I mean, there's great examples of that, but specifically like the most recent Star Wars movie. Well, most recent, but like what Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah,
I think
something like that.
I watched that movie and I have not watched Star Wars media since. And I
It's
know
tough.
that there's been good stuff. I love Star Wars. I really do. But that movie burnt me out. I was
puts a
like,
bad taste
I'm
in your
done.
mouth.
This did the complete opposite to me with the Alien franchise. Like, it was so good.
Yeah, loved it.
Anyway, that's that.
All right, so for me, number 4, I'm going with Oddity, directed by Damian McCarthy, sitting at 5 out of 5 stars for me on Letterboxd. This one worked for me. It was lower on my list because it's been a while since I've seen it, and other movies were fresh in my brain. They go up pretty high after the excitement of seeing them, right? But after revisiting this movie and thinking more on it, I was like, this was a delight. It is a perfect, like, it's like, I don't know how to describe it. It is so many subgenres in one thing. There's a bit of like a ghost story to it, you know. It's I don't know how to describe it. It's an Irish film, which we didn't mention. Also, it's like it's not made here in America. And so this is a movie you can feel. I'm struggling to put into words. I want to articulate this properly. How much I loved this movie, but you can feel this movie from the first sequence. You're wrapped in the atmosphere and the chill of this world. You cannot shake it even until the very end of the movie. It takes its time. It is a slow movie that does not rush through anything, and you do not mind because you were hanging on every single scene, every performance in it. I feel like there are some movies that, like, were they done this way, they could feel like they're dragging a little bit, right? This movie did not drag even slightly. No. Everything was used perfectly, properly in its time. It's a movie that, like, interestingly, like, sets itself up several times in the movie for payoffs way later in the movie, where it's like, it's not like I necessarily forgot about it, or even to be like, oh, well, I called that was going to happen. You're just like, everything falls into place so perfectly. The way the way it unravels by the end of it is so good. What I really love about this movie is that it really plays with your idea of what evil is. Like, yes, as Derek mentioned, there's this truly terrifying looking golem, but that really is not what gets this movie under your skin. I think there is much more at play about karma and retribution and stuff. Like, this sister has been wronged in a sense, and you find out why, and she kind of, you know, and like, I don't want to spoil it, but, you know, she might get, you know, her way in one way or another. And I think what makes the golem really good is it showcases terror, because I was reading a book actually recently about what is the difference between terror and what is the difference between horror. The difference between those two is terror is leading up to something scary, right? So like the anticipation, the buildup, you going to the door, what's behind the door. The horror is what you were left with after the fact. You know, like people scream, oh, the horror, you know, that is what they're talking about. What is behind the door? The horror is the golem. That is the scary thing. But leading up to like him just sitting there doing nothing, it is terrorizing, terrifying to sit there and be like, what is he going to do? When is he going to move? He looks scary and he's just sitting there the whole time, right? Yeah, I think that's something that makes Michael Myers such a scary villain too, because he like expressionless face. He doesn't run to any of his locations. He walks from place to place, right? So I think it does a really, really good job at that.
It does.
But the movie is truly stripped back to honestly a fairly simple plot that just showcases the wonderful, almost whimsical story at times they've put together with a beautiful performance from Carolyn Bracken, who does an incredible performance as a blind woman too. Like, she actually plays both of the sisters. So she starts out the movie, the opening sequence is about her sister and what happened to her. You find out all that stuff. But then she also doubles as her blind sister, and she was believable. I straight up had to Google after the fact if she was really blind or not.
Yeah, I did too. And then that's when we found out that she was the same actress. too.
Because that's another
We
thing.
had no idea.
Watching the movie, I did not know that. I did not understand, or I did not grasp that she was playing both of them. I thought they just got two actresses that either were really sisters or looked a lot like each other, but she does wonderful dual performances in this one.
We should have had a category for best final scene of the movie.
Yeah.
Because the final shot of this movie, oh man, they let you breathe. They trick you. They trick you so
you
good.
get duped real good.
And that final shot is just so excellent.
So yes, it is a beautifully haunting and wonderful tale of karma, retribution, all those things that I mentioned. I think it is a fantastic film and absolutely the scariest one I've seen on here.
Absolutely. And this is a movie I want to show people to. I haven't yet because I haven't been ready mentally and physically and spiritually to
I was too
to watch
excited.
this movie again.
I think literally the next day, maybe 2 days afterwards, I brought some of my family and I went to go
I
see
remember
it.
that, yeah.
And it was great. It's so funny because it is also a movie that you kind of like you have to think about a little bit sometimes because my family saw it and they were like, I don't know how I felt about that. Then I got us discussing it and then they're like, actually that movie was incredible. It's like just really think about some of the things. It's mwah, chef's kiss.
So good.
What else can you say about it? It's a great film.
All right, what's our next? That was Horrible award.
Our next That Was Horrible award was Biggest Disappointment. This is a tough one
this
that I
goes
hate to
to-
give out. Goes to...
Maxine.
Yep, Maxine was
man.
our biggest disappointment. I feel like I'm in a different boat than the rest of the world.
Me
I
too,
feel like
man.
a lot of people were like, oh, Maxine, film of the year. I did not feel the same way. I feel like it was kind of a dud for the end of this trilogy.
No, yeah, it really took. It's talking about terror, right?
Yes.
The first two movies, those were terror. We're expecting Maxine to be the horror.
Let's live
the
up.
prestige, the final chapter of
Yes.
this fantastic trilogy. No, it was a complete dud.
Truly peaked with Pearl. Pearl is, if we put the trilogy in order, it goes like Pearl X, Maxine at the
Absolutely.
bottom.
And I think that's part of its detriment, right? Because the step up from X to Pearl
Was massive.
is so good.
There's a chasm between those two movies, right? So then you really got to go further and harder with the next one, right?
And it just fell flat.
No,
in,
and
like
it-
almost every way.
It didn't feel like a horror movie to
No,
me.
it didn't.
And honestly, it kind of lost itself in that. It kind of felt more like an action thriller
It
movie
felt
to
like
me
a
than that.
B movie.
And you know the saddest part about it is the fact that you have Mia Goth, who plays the titular Maxine in this movie. She does a good job. I can't say that she
course.
did a bad job, but this movie was not written very well for her character because the character that stole the show was Kevin Bacon.
Why?
Kevin Bacon did
Why?
a wonderful job in this movie.
was.
And unfortunately, Mia Goth felt like the vehicle that we take between parts of this movie, not the driving force of it.
And it was like she was an Uber though. It was like we were in her Uber,
Yeah.
and going to different scenes.
It's got
but
her
we
name-
didn't know we didn't care.
No, she's her name's on the goddamn cover of the movie, but it didn't feel like it was enough about her.
No,
it
and
was about other things, other problems that she found herself in the midst of. But yeah, it wasn't about Maxine.
No, it was just disappointing.
So yeah, I'm sorry. It just like really disappointed me.
Same.
Yep.
Are we at number 3?
Number 3, we're in our top
Man, we're
3 here.
making
We're getting
We're getting through these quick.
Yeah,
dog.
we are. We're like I'm trying not to bore the viewer. I also just like find myself at a loss of words a lot of the time.
Well, and it helps that we cover the movies twice sometimes. So
Yeah, so there are some that we have lots of in-depth review about. All right, so
Number
number 3,
three.
let's roll.
Wow.
Well, you're at a 1 and I'm
you're
at
at
a
a
2,
two.
so just barely beating you.
That is critical failed.
So I'm sitting at number 3, Alien Romulus. This
Hey, we
guy's
discussed about
this
that.
movie really, really worked for me personally. It's another movie where, like, I would argue, like, for instance, like, fundamentally, I would say Oddity is a better movie. Like, as far as like the film snobs would probably say, but this one really works for Isaac. Fede Alvarez did a fantastic job here. He made Alien scary again. That is something that like really bothered me as we like you said, I went and invested a lot more time into the Alien movies, even going into like Alien versus Predator, all those kinds of things, right?
We watched Alien versus Predator for the podcast
Yes,
this
exactly.
year because of this movie.
But like as the series progressed, it became more action than horror. It was mostly like military propaganda, we're going to shoot these aliens kind of stuff that really lost what made the first one a masterpiece, honestly. And you can feel Fede Alvarez's love for those horror roots within the first Alien. And I think he did phenomenal work taking us back there with this successor to that movie, because it does take place between Alien and Aliens, the sequel to it, right? And I think he did a fantastic job with it. Big points for utilizing so many practical effects in this sci-fi movie, right? Because those are costly. Those are not cheap effects to do, right? And so like Fede said, like I mentioned, if it was possible to do it with practical effects, then that's what they would do. Like That's just the short and sweet of it, right? Which is truly what makes these xenomorphs even more terrifying and gets such real reactions out of the cast, like I was mentioning, right? I think it's another great horror installment this year that has a beautifully diverse and interesting ensemble cast that feels very, very realized. That's something I love about the original Alien movie, is like, without them laying out and like just like spoon feeding you all of these, like, okay, so this character is this one, here's this relationship with this person. They beautifully tell you these things just in the way they interact with each other, the way that their comfort levels with each other, the way they talk, their dialogue with each other really goes to show how long these people have known each other, how far back they go. And like, I think they do a really good job. This movie does also the same thing. There's this huge like ensemble of characters that are also really good, unique, lovable, some of them incredibly despicable, but that makes them great in this movie. And I think they did a great job of showing us all of these things with, again, like Derek mentioned, standout performances from Kaylee Spaney playing Rain and David Johnson playing her lovable brother character in this movie. Sincerely, like, breakout roles for both of these characters.
Absolutely.
I've never seen David Johnson in anything else. I know Kaylee Spaney has been in a couple of things in recent years. I really hope after this movie she's in a lot more stuff because she does a great job. There's this one scene involving alien blood and zero gravity that was pure genius, and that's all. I'd tell you more, but you just got to go see it to experience it. You really just have to watch this movie. But this is another movie that had a wonderful sense of atmosphere, the sets, the lighting in it, putting us in this world of Alien and the spaceship, the sci-fi of it
tension.
all. I loved it all. Such great, and honestly, wonderful monster work again from the wonderful xenomorph in the Alien movies.
Yeah.
I could go on for hours about this movie, but I'll say my piece about Alien Romulus. It was a wonderful movie. It's one of the movies actually on this list that I bought merch for. I have an Alien Romulus hat.
Yeah.
And so that'll go to show you how much I like this movie.
Mine, number 3, the whole reason we delayed this episode is Nosferatu.
Because
From
it
the
came
great
out on
Robert Eggers.
Christmas. We're like, how can we? What have they done to us? How can we sit on this movie and make a best of?
We couldn't
movie?
wait an entire year to
we
put it on
had
the
to talk
2025
about it.
release. We had to talk about
Both
it.
of us knew when it was coming. We're like, this is going on the top list for sure. Because
And
you love Robert Eggers, right?
Big fan of Robert Eggers. I'm a huge fan of gothic horror, though, is like my vibe. Bloodborne is my favorite video game of all time. So it's like, you get it. I love gothic horror, and I'm like, I love The Lighthouse, but you are too. I mean,
absolutely.
You'll talk about this one eventually. I don't know where it is, but it is.
Come on,
it's in there. I mean, we both knew, right? We were like, this is going to be in our top 5. It don't know where,
but I know,
but it's going to be in our top 5.
I know personally that like Robert Eggers works a bit more for you, for me sometimes, because like we watched The Northman together, and I feel like you liked that one a bit more than me. I did love the Lighthouse though.
Oh yeah, Lighthouse.
The Witch is still, it's not quite up there in my top favorites, but I did also enjoy that one.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, I definitely think that for me, like ranking wise, this doesn't matter. It's like,
let's get into it.
Lighthouse, Nosferatu, Northman, Witch,
yeah,
for sure.
I think.
Are you with me on there?
I think that definitely tracks.
Lighthouse is just like, it's so good. We're not talking about Lighthouse. We're talking about Nosferatu. Okay, we're gonna reset it here a little bit.
Yeah, let's
we
center
started talking
ourselves
about
here.
Robert Eggers,
The guy
I
that's my
always
fault.
call Roger Eggers, and I don't know why. Nosferatu, 5 stars. A gothic tale of obsession between a haunted young woman and a terrifying vampire infatuated her, causing untold terror in its wake. So this movie is a remake of a 1920s silent film.
1922, a direct ripoff of Dracula.
In fact, they were forced to burn all of the copies of Nosferatu.
Yes, the estate of Bram Stoker said, absolutely not. You're going to burn all of those copies.
And I was curious. I've seen Nosferatu, like the 1922 version, like years ago. I don't remember anything from it. And it's a silent film, so it like
painfully
didn't really stick.
polite as a horror movie, right? It's from 1922,
But
right?
it is iconic as hell.
Yes.
I mean,
he's in
shots,
SpongeBob.
those
Come on.
creatures- Yeah, who's flickering the light? But like the way that they adapted this to a modern screen by doing it not modernly.
No, because that's the thing. We have movies like Lee Whannell did the Invisible Man remake, right? And that is set in modern day, right? They completely took it away from the decade in which it originally takes place. This one, they kept it where it belongs, and holy shit, did they do such a good job with that.
Atmosphere. You're going to talk about it.
I know, I'm sorry. I'll have my
Let me
moment.
talk about it for a
Say
second.
your piece.
You'll talk about it for 20 minutes. Isaac is obsessed But that's
Definitely,
okay.
definitely. We're recording this 3 days after the movie
Yeah.
came out. I've already seen it twice.
Yeah, okay. I almost saw it twice too. I just had plans. I am an absolute slut for good atmosphere and design. I absolutely loved this world. One of the opening shots of the movie is Nicholas Holt's character just walking through the streets, and the way that you just get sucked into the world is masterful. I saw a picture of Robert Eggers sitting offset eating some like McDonald's or something.
Yeah.
And it blew my mind. I was like, there is no way that is the same world that I'm living
It
in
truly
this
feels
camera
like
work.
they traveled back in time. They masterfully did this. And that's just because of Robert Eggers as who he is as a director.
It's funny, whenever I listen to him in interviews, I hate him. I can't stand listening
He comes
to
across
him.
a little
He's kind of-
conceited,
he's- He's so full of himself, and he always says like, I always hate my last movie. Like he's always like, he's like a poser or what is it? Like a hipster of his own movies.
Yeah, that's
where
fair.
he's like, no, I don't like that. Like, you guys are wrong. It's like, be happy that you created such a masterpiece of gothic horror. Like, now, Nosferatu as a whole, like, it is not a perfect movie. And, like, when you strip back some of the plot things, it is a plot from 1922 that is a direct ripoff of another plot. And the ways, like, some of the directions he went with it, I don't know if I agree with. But all of that aside, the film, the dialogue, the cinematography. Oh my God, the cinematography.
Lord, the cinematography.
There is a shot with a carriage in like a forest with lighting coming from different angles. That is, I'm not gonna lie, man. This is a direct ripoff from a scene from Bloodborne, and I got raging boner from that scene. It worked so well. But I was talking to Emily about this. I mean, this movie has spurred more discussion between me and her about a movie than any movie I've seen in a long time.
Interesting.
We have been discussing this movie like crazy, and she did enjoy it, but she's been super torn on it because she doesn't like possession movies.
Possession, yeah.
And
There's
this
a
movie,
heavy angle of that
out
in
of
this.
nowhere, became a possession movie, and I'm not super big on that, but it didn't ruin my experience. I liked that it is causing so much discussion. One thing that I want to bring up that I don't know. It just isn't talked about as much as Bill Skarsgård has talked about. You can gush about him. He was incredible. Him and his weird little sausage penis. This movie's dialogue was the closest to like Shakespearean dialogue that I've felt in so long.
That actually, I'd never thought about that because funny enough, I went and saw this with some of my family members. My siblings were talking about how they were like, I really need like a dictionary on what some of these words mean. Like, because like I got all of it.
Oh, me too.
Off the
Yeah,
bat,
I didn't
like,
have
no
a problem with it.
But I guess there's some like that is a thing, right? It is a little bit Shakespearean, and what do people always say about Shakespeare? Like, well, I didn't really understand it. You know, I don't get it. But I think there's a huge part of that. Like, absolutely, the way it is written and performed as well, like, is Shakespearean in nature.
There is a specific
beauty to it.
There's a specific monologue that Bill Skarsgård, as old man Orlok, gives, where he is talking to what is her name, Elaine, Ellen, where he is talking to her about all of it, right? And the way that he delivers those lines of dialogue felt like a perfectly, masterfully executed soliloquy from any Shakespeare I've ever seen. And I was so there. I was so there. The first half of this movie, I was worried. I was like, okay, the cinematography is great. Nothing's else really pulling me in. And then the second half, I was like, oh no, this is it. This is it. This is
from
beautiful.
everyone in the movie.
This
Truly
is beautiful. Like and Willem Dafoe. There's a scene where he's like torching a place that again, Bloodborne, man. That was straight out of Bloodborne. I've seen that in a video game. I love it. But no, really, I did really love it. And again, I love how much discourse this, like, even not just amongst me and Emily, but like critics online.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people are like, fantastic movie. Other people are
Everybody's
like,
talking about
no,
it.
I don't know if it was this fantastic movie you think. And I think, again, that creating that discourse is what makes it so beautiful.
Absolutely.
I could keep going. I should probably stop.
No, it's okay. You can stop because, we might come back to it.
What? I don't think this is
We might come back to this movie, so
I don't think
you'll
it'll be
have
on your
lots
list.
more time to talk about this movie.
And you may be like, Derek, if you love it so much, why is it so on your list? We'll keep watching.
Keep watching. There's some other movies too that were also really good. So we're on to this will be our last award.
Yeah, the final award.
The final award for best performance.
And we've already talked about her a lot. We've gushed about it. This is another one we had discourse
This
on,
one
though.
was hard because there have been several. Like, we would be remiss if we didn't also mention some of the other fantastic performances in this movie.
I mean, we have
in this
been, like
movie.
David Tasmasian.
Yeah, him him.
Said it different.
Just say it quick. From Late Night with the Devil. We also have Demi Moore in The Substance, which we haven't really talked about yet.
No, we haven't. No.
It's fine. Maybe we'll get to that and stuff.
Probably.
But there are many wonderful performances that all deserve their praise and stuff. But we really felt like, as a whole, one that stuck out to us. We could not get away from the thought of was Naomi Scott in Smile 2. She did a fantastic job in this movie. Really, it's not that I didn't really care much about her before, but I think she's done wonderful work in the other things she's done. She was in Lemonade Mouth on Disney Channel, and she was also Princess Jasmine. She was in the Power Rangers.
Lemonade
She
Mouth.
was in Lemonade Mouth. Isn't that funny?
But she... I've heard people say, this didn't belong in a horror movie. I have said those words myself, that performance. But no, it did.
Yes.
Because the greatest thing about 2024 is that it is bringing horror more mainstream than it ever has.
Absolutely.
The fact that some of the performances this year are up for Oscar nominations.
That's insane.
The Oscar nominations aren't out yet, so I don't know.
No, yeah, but
maybe I might be wrong, but people are talking about it.
The Substance is currently on the Oscar shortlist. So
and it's on it was nominated for Golden Globes.
That's true, yeah,
so
exactly.
That's huge. And Naomi Scott really, really stood out this year.
And that's what we need. We need these performances that got people talking about, this is Oscar worthy, because that's the thing. It's not the first time a horror movie has been worthy of that kind of stuff.
No, of course not.
But people kind of sit on it. They think of it as a lesser movie, and that is not what they are. And Naomi Scott really proves that with this incredible performance, remarkable performance from her in this movie. What else do you say? We've talked about it enough. Her incredible skill at chugging a water bottle. We can talk about.
I've tried that a couple times since watching
it's hard.
It's tough, man. It hurts.
It really
your
hurts
esophagus.
you.
And your esophagus ain't esophagus.
But yeah, so that
ain't
is
soft, I guess.
Your esophagus ain't soft, I guess.
That's funny.
If this was a podcast episode, that's what we would have titled it.
We would have actually. It is.
Yeah.
You're so right, and we would riff about it for the next 20 minutes.
Absolutely.
Go listen to our podcast.
But we're not here to talk about that. So that is our best performance with Naomi Scott in Smile 2. But now let us talk about the number 2 movie of the year, or of our top 10.
Number 2. Oh.
Again, we're one number off of each other?
18 for me, 17 for you.
Dang
All
it.
right.
All right. Well, take it away then. Fine.
It was just a matter of time before one of us talked about this movie. Number 2 for me is The Substance, sitting at a 5 out of 5 on Letterboxd.
See, you wanted to do it too.
This is written and directed by Coralie Farge. A fading celebrity takes a black market drug, a cell-replicating substance that temporarily creates a younger, better version of herself. I didn't write any notes for this. I literally said, what do you even said that hasn't been said? Phenomenal deck. I don't know what I meant deck there, but listen, The Substance is what we need movies to be.
It's a masterpiece.
It is not just a masterpiece of horror, it is a masterpiece of cinema. And I think it perfectly encapsulates what the industry is moving towards. This movie is right up there with Barbie as it is a step in the right direction for what we need to do to understand what people have been going through for so long.
In an important perspective too, written and directed by a woman who knows personally what this industry is like, right?
Yeah, and I mean, gore aside, crazy scares aside from this movie, it is a fantastic story. And even if you're not a woman, you can relate to this. There are scenes in this movie that have lived rent-free in my head because they just worked on every level.
And the way that they are shot, the way that the characters are written, all of that, you can really feel it. And it's an important perspective to be shown here.
And this is another one that we have a podcast episode on, and I highly recommend you go listen to that, because we really don't need to waste any time here talking about this.
We gush about it,
but listen, we'll touch on it.
Yeah, but I mean, this is number 1 and number 2 here, right?
Yeah, it's true.
If there's any place to get into how we're feeling about a movie, this is the place.
You're right. We've just talked about this movie a lot, and there's
I would
reason
continue
for that.
to talk
there
about it.
There is a reason for that. The last 20 minutes of this movie are what everybody talks about, and for really good reason. It goes crazy directions that are both obscene and upsetting, but also kind of cathartic.
Yeah.
And it's fun and it's exciting. I don't know. I want to talk intellectually about this movie, but I have already, and I feel like just saying how fantastic it is enough.
Yeah.
But Demi Moore
it's a movie that leaves you speechless, right?
And what's her name? Margaret Qualley.
Margaret Qualley.
Dude, they just give such a phenomenal performance, and Harvey Weinstein's here, and he's disgusting, and everybody hates him.
Yeah, it's hilarious. They have one
disgusting.
character who's this awful, terrible man who's the owner of this television network or something like that. His name is Harvey, which is hilarious.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good.
This movie is not subtle.
No, and that is what makes it so good, because they have this crazy plot that just goes in so many different directions, but it's also so captivating. And you're really brought into this world by the soundtrack, by the cinematography. Like, there's so many homages. Again, like going back to when I was talking about Smile 2, how it took homages, but then it made it its own thing. This really took the Kubrickian approach to a lot of its visuals. And that was really, again, really smart. It was just a really good angle to take your film.
It's a sharp movie.
Oh, that's a great way
if I could put a word to it.
Sharp is very
It's
very good.
it's smart, it's well done, it knows what it's doing. It's great.
Yeah. And it is very upsetting though. Like, it is upsetting to watch. It makes you not want to be a human anymore.
Yeah.
Because, like, it doesn't matter who you are, you have witnessed the male gaze, right? And if you're a man, it doesn't matter who you are, you have done the male gaze, right? It is just how society is. And this movie makes it horror. It makes the concept of the male gaze horror. And
Which
that
is what it
genius.
is, right? It is
Yes.
horrifying, right?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
a thing that people experience day-to-day basis, right?
Absolutely. And it's another one that Emily hasn't even seen this movie, and it has sparked conversation between us about it. It is so good and so cathartic, and so I hope that people open their minds to it when they watch it, and they're not just like, oh, crazy horror movie with big shocks.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what it is. But also,
There's so much more underneath that.
I will be so happy if this movie gets Oscars.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
it deserves it. It honestly deserves Best Picture. This movie is currently sitting at my number 2 for the year of movies, as well as horror. So,
Yeah.
like, kudos to you, Coralie Farge. I also watched her movie Revenge because of this movie, and I highly recommend
Which is
that
like
one
the
too.
substance light, right? Like there's a lot of similarities.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. A lot of gore in that one too. So she goes crazy in like a great way.
Oh yeah. So going to my number 2, we're going to go back to our earlier conversation. Guys, okay, this was the hardest decision I have ever had
I'm actually
to make.
surprised.
Because my number 1 and my number 2 are so neck and neck. If they could be tied for me, they would be, because both of them work for me on different ways, but on so many levels. And this movie, it bounced back up to 1, back down to 2 a couple of times. But so I was trying not to let the excitement of this very recent horror movie get to me. Number 2 is Nosferatu, directed by Robert Eggers. It is a 5 out of 5 movie for me. And I try to be conscious of the fact that it just came out. I know it's a brand new toy. It's very exciting. And like, I didn't want that to skew my view of it, but it is, I mean, just every single element of this movie is pure artistry on display. The entirety of it moves and flows like you were under Count Orlok's trance yourself. Yeah. It is like the way, because like seeing it a second time, I was like, this movie feels like a dream. You are floating your way through this movie. It is beautifully, the way it shifts and transitions between all of the scenes are just masterfully done. It is truly, truly a work of art. Robert Eggers is the perfect man to make a period piece like this one, because he has such a love for history and showing that accurately on film. Everything about this film, set in Germany 1838, worked so well. Like we already talked about, it felt like we were taken back to that time period. I remember I read a thing about Robert Eggers on set. I want to say it was for Nosferatu. It might have been for a different movie, but I know for a fact in Nosferatu, he wanted to light all of the interior night scenes purely with candlelight.
Yes.
Which that's genius. I love that.
And you feel it.
Yes.
You feel it when you're watching the movie.
This is another movie you can completely feel the atmosphere emanating from the screen in this movie. But yeah, that's something that is worth mentioning. All of the scenes inside that are lit at nighttime are all purely lit just by the candles that the actors either have on tables or in their hands and stuff. But there was one scene specifically where they had to use, I'm butchering it here, I don't remember exactly what it was, but let's just say there was a 3-pronged candle that he had to use on a table because he needed that much light for the scene, and he was pissed about it because that wasn't accurate to the time. It might have been like a 2-pronged candle instead that he wanted to use for that, but he was like, we need more light, so I have to let this happen. But like, that's the kind of historical nerd that Robert Eggers is, how much care he puts into these kinds of things. It is really, really great. And Derek refused to talk about it, so I'm gonna get on this. Bill Skarsgård.
I just knew you had an entire paragraph about it.
Bill Skarsgård is truly one of the greatest actors of our time. God damn it, he's so good. Because like another movie you saw recently this year that I'd missed was Boy Kills World,
you gotta
right?
see that.
He's great in that one too,
gotta
right?
see that.
Sincerely, he is a chameleon of an actor. He can do so much. And this might be a lot to say. It may be too soon to call it, but I hope we keep him in horror as long as possible and associate his name with horror as much as we do with like Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff.
He
as far
deserves
as like actors that bring a monster to life on screen. Nobody else is doing it like Bill Skarsgård. Because like take him as Pennywise, right? He has done a phenomenal job taking this character, completely losing himself within it, and just becoming truly a truly unrecognizable force of nature in this movie. Every other actor in the movie was also perfectly cast and really rounded out this film. They are also worth mentioning. You know, Lily Rose Depp, Aaron Taylor Johnson. I'm forgetting her name, Emma Corrin. Also, they do, and of course Willem Dafoe. The second time I watched this one, I really appreciated him more as like kind of the comedic relief in this movie.
There's a couple moments when he like giggles to himself, or when he lights his pipe on the Christmas tree.
Oh yeah,
Emily was laughing about that one like all night.
He's hilarious, especially since he's hilarious in the sense that he's not a kooky, funny character. He's not trying to ham it up at all. It's just his sincerity in his performance in it all. Like there's a scene where he's talking about he's a doctor who is examining Ellen in her possession of Nosferatu, right? And he's like, I have no doubt in my mind that she's possessed by a demon, right? And one of the guys like, oh, this is preposterous, absolutely not. And another guy's like, no, clearly he means hyperbole. He's like, no, I mean demon. He's like, I'm not fucking around, guys. I mean what I say. And there's something just hilarious in his delivery of it, the sincerity of it.
Fantastic performance.
Because that's honestly a huge thing in comedy, right? The comedy comes in the honesty of its delivery, right? If it's funny, it will come across funny, and that's exactly what he does in this movie. Yeah. So all of the actors are worth mentioning. Even Lily Rose Depp, she does some incredible things. The way she moves her body in this movie, that's terrifying to look at. Honestly, it's scary to think she was okay doing multiple takes of something like that.
Yeah,
and then
she went crazy.
I could just go on and on about this movie. The atmosphere, the dreamlike tranceness of it. It is cinematography paradise, guys.
Drooling.
Holy shit, it is so good. And the monochromatic palette of it really evoked the feeling of an old silver-screened black and white movie like it would have been in 1922, right? Which I think is such a genius idea to do that, because actually, I had two people actually say, that movie's in black and white, right? Just because the way the trailers are, the way it is shot, the color palette
I actually
of it,
thought it was going to be
it
in black
looks
and white.
like it's in black and white, but it is not, and there's something magical about the way they toe that line there. But it is a wonderful adaptation of something that, like, honestly, most people don't really give a shit about. Honestly, most people don't even know who Nosferatu is unless you've seen that episode of SpongeBob, right? Like,
but he's not Nosferatu.
no,
he's Count Orlok.
He's Count Orlok. That's the thing. And they just, the way that they adapted it, they changed it. He made this vampire scary, because there's something he's talked about in interviews. Robert Eggers was talking about how, like, vampires have kind of gone away from being monstrous, terrifying things, forces you should not trifle with even slightly. And that is what this movie is. He's not a sexy vampire. He doesn't have this allure to him that only works because he literally, possesses people. He puts them under this trance, right? And that is what he does a wonderful job of making this a vampire that is a monstrous,
scary and
terrifying nature, even more so than they've ever been in the past. This is a beast. He is terrifying, and that's thanks to Robert Eggers and his vision for this, and also just Bill Skarsgård's transformative nature of this one. God damn, I love it so much. It's wonderful. Wasn't expecting that.
Spoilers?
It's a bit of a spoiler, yeah, because what you're expecting is like the shrimpy little dude with his bald head and his hair sticking out the sides and his two little wimpy fangs. Like, there's a look to that you expect. They did not do that.
They expanded on it.
Instead, they went with a much more like historically accurate time for like the location, the time period, his status as a
lot of it
count,
was
right?
What's that guy's name? I forgot it right now. The one who inspired Dracula, the butcher or whatever.
Oh gosh, I forget.
Yeah, the guy, you know who I'm talking about. Put it up on the screen right here. It's gonna be right here. This
not
guy,
Jack the Ripper. Is that what you're talking about?
No,
okay.
the other guy, the one who sucks blood.
Vlad the Impaler.
Vlad the Impaler.
There it is.
It's gonna be right here.
There
still. It is. Just like, wait, you have to do it in that like Windows Word, Microsoft Word font that's big letters. Vlad the Impaler. Thank you.
You want it in Comic Sans? I can do that.
No,
too.
no. That's not cool enough. Vlad the Impaler. But they were talking about the creature design of Count Orlok and how they really wanted to go for that.
Absolutely.
And that was one of the things that they really took from. That's actually where the mustache came from, was Vlad the Impaler.
No, and it totally tracks something like that, something more like Rasputin too. Yeah. And also his voice. Another thing to highlight the wonderful work of Bill Skarsgård, I could go on and on about it. He worked with like an opera singer trainer to lower his voice a whole octave. Like that's
incredible.
The level of work. And what's even more impressive about this, I know it should be a very normal thing, but to see what he looked like, what he did, what he delivered as Count Orlok in this movie, and then to see him on the red carpet for this movie looking like a normal guy.
He's just a guy.
Like, we've seen other actors who go way too deep into the method acting of it. Like Jared Leto's like, I don't know where the Joker ends and I begin, you know? And so to see him go to such great lengths, give us such a crazy character, and then completely back to just being like, yeah, it's me, Bill Skarsgård, what's up? I'm just a guy. Like, what the hell?
Oh, that guy in the cloak, yeah, that was me.
It's so impressive. So yes,
All right.
that is my piece about Nosferatu. It is my number 2 movie. It could have been number 1, but there is one movie that bested it for me.
You know what it is.
We know what it is.
Okay, honorable mentions time.
Yeah.
Let's just do it.
This
Let's
is
just
another
jump in.
thing that was kind of tough to get into. Should we just bounce back and forth
Yeah,
on
let's
this
just
one?
bounce back and forth. I'll start.
Yeah, get us going.
My first honorary mention, this should have been in my top 10, but it kind of kept bouncing around, was The First Omen. This movie, we'll just give like a quick couple sentences.
Mm-hmm.
The reason that this movie is an honorable mention is this movie elicited such a response from me that no other movie in my life I think ever has. This movie made me feel ill.
Mm-hmm.
I, even now talking about it, feel slightly sick from it. But it had the best jump scares, like the most well-placed jump scares, I think, of the year. It didn't have the best scares of the year, but I think it had some of the best jump scares.
Some beautiful shots too.
Yeah.
Some gorgeous. The way they're set up and lit was awesome.
And the idea of making a prequel to a movie that isn't like the most loved is like a great idea.
Yeah.
I thought that was really, really good, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. For me, my first honorable mention, these are in no specific order. I'm not putting any of these above any of the other ones, but my first one that I wanted to mention was Frankie Frico. This is a super strange one that feels like it's been ripped straight out of the 80s. Kind of just like that zaniness of like outlandish practical effects and just like nonsensical, whimsical plot line to it with these fun little characters that like, it basically looks like if they took like Garbage Pail characters and made them real characters in a movie. And they're I don't even know where to go with this one. It was so crazy and out there, fun colors, fun practical effects. The little guys in it. Frankie Frico himself looks so hilarious, and it just really wowed me. It was a fun movie that I want to see more of. You know, I don't want these movies to just live in the 80s. I want us to stick with this vibe and make it a fun thing, because it's not like, I don't know. It was a great time. What else can I say about it? Frankie Frico was a fun one.
What else can you say about it? The next one for me was not a fun movie. We watched this movie together, The Devil's Bath.
Lord, this one made me feel sick. I was like, I feel bad after watching this movie.
This movie had no happiness at all. But it is a historical piece. Oh my goodness, I don't even really want to talk about it. What I do want to say though is this movie resonated with me in a very heavy way, and in such like it's a historical drama. It is based on real things that happened in the 1700s in Austria. And to watch these characters go through it in such a beautiful landscape, to experience these awful things dealing with, suicide and rejection and religion, it was a phenomenally made, horrifying film, but not horrifying in the normal horror sense. Horrifying in the sense that this shit actually happened.
Yes.
Horrifying that this shit is on film in front of me, that I'm watching it, but even more horrifying that it's a story that time forgot.
Yes.
And it's a story that needs to be repeated.
I knew nothing about it.
Oh, yeah. All of it. I mean, every history class I've ever been through just did not talk about.
No, of course not.
Like this is, you just don't talk about. Well, you say of course not, but I'm like, why didn't I know about this?
No, right?
You know what I mean?
You should have.
Yeah, like it's terrifying. It's horrifying.
It's a bleak movie, though.
Yes. Don't expect to feel happy afterwards, but I do. It is one that I think everyone should know about, and one everyone should at least read the synopsis of.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily need to experience it, but also it's on my honorable mentions. It knocked Trap out of here, so just kidding.
Trap.
It honestly feels disrespectful to even bring up Trap in this regard, because Devil's Bath was a shocking experience that I do recommend.
Yeah. Another one for me was Azrael. This is a movie starring Samara Weaving in this one, where she does not speak a word in this movie. Much like Derek, I love a gimmick movie, and this is a movie where the gimmick, no talking in this one. And what I love most about this movie is they do not lay really anything out for you. You kind of assume it's about the rapture. There's a religious element to all the things that are going on in here. All you see is Samara Weaving kind of going like through this post-apocalyptic world where nobody can speak to each other, and there are these horrifying creatures that look human, like maybe they once were human at one point, but you don't know what happened to them, why they're this way, how they ended up in the situation. And it has such a mind-boggling ending where it just like stops. You're just like, that's how we're gonna
Very
leave
Sopranos.
it. Shit really hits the fan, and then they're like, all right, so that's the movie, roll credits. What you guys think? Like, what the fuck? What? I need to know more about this kind of movie. And I love that because there are times where you think you understand the rules of the world and what's going on with them, and then they kind of sweep the leg out from under you. You're like, well, now I don't really know, honestly. And then it leaves off on this crazy ending where you're like, oh, I don't know what to think anymore. I don't know what even to theorize about. It is so crazy. But it also had some really, really impressive action sequences, like some really cool fights.
Man, that fight in the church at the end.
Incredible, right? Like really good as far as like horror action kind of stuff. Really, really impressive stuff. So I really enjoyed that movie a lot.
Yeah. My last one is Mads. Now, if you've heard of this movie, you've probably heard about the gimmick of it. This movie was one entire take.
Incredibly impressive.
Hour and 20 minutes or something like that. It is an entire one take. The camera never cuts. Now there are people online who have tried to There are people online who have tried to debunk this. They have all failed. This movie was they literally rehearsed it, did 4 takes, and kept the best one.
That's just so great. Didn't you say did you mention to me they kept like the first one?
Yeah, it was like one of the I think it was like the first or the second one or something like that. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, on top of all that, you have fantastic performances, you have some genuinely really good scares, and you have moments where they're riding on a motorcycle where you're like, why the hell is this one take? How did the camera get from the ground to on a different motorcycle to now going full speed down the highway?
Logistically, how did they make some of this stuff happen?
How did it happen?
Even with the effects, right?
Yeah.
You're like, how did they set that up?
I've shown Isaac a few of these scenes for that reason.
It's mind-blowing how they do this. It shouldn't be possible, but they did it.
Yeah, and gimmick aside, it is also just a good movie.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a zombie movie, but it is done in such a unique way, not just with the cinematography.
Yeah. So my final one here that is on my honorable mentions is gonna sound kind of weird. And so like there are other movies I might have liked a little bit more than this one, but I feel like this one deserved mentioning. It is Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey 2. And the reason that I bring this up is because, like I kind of half mentioned earlier with the whole mousetrap kind of gimmick, is you take a character like Winnie the Pooh, you put him into a horror setting, that's going to sell tickets off the bat, right? Because there are people who are messed up like the two of us. I'm going to go see that. And then, so it's like, clearly that was a wide success. They made a lot of money off of that. The easy thing to do would be to just keep going with that, to not do anything great with that. But they have taken this and taken what could be such an easy cash grab and actually gave a shit, really invested the money where it should have gone and made a really good movie. It's not sitting incredibly high on my list, nor is my rating for it. But I thought it was just so impressive to me how much better it was than Blood and Honey 1. They just really upped the ante, put the money in the right spots, and just made a substantial movie with some good performances in it too. The guy playing Christopher Robin was pretty good. I kept wanting to poke holes in a lot of the stuff, especially the performances, and I never got the chance. They really just kind of came out of the woodworks and did a really good job, and they've announced that they have a whole cinematic universe planned for this stuff, right? They got Pinocchio coming out, Bambi's going to be in there, Peter Pan's going to be up in the mix, and after this movie, I actually found myself being like, I'm ready for it.
All right,
I'm really
give
willing.
it to us then.
I'll see some of the stuff, and some of those movies will be coming out next year. We'll watch them. Maybe we'll be reviewing them at some point, either for a regular episode or maybe for one of the other bits. But yeah, so that is my final one. So again, I just felt like I needed to mention around that one. I'm like, I know it's not a perfect movie.
Go listen to our podcast episode about it.
But it just really impressed me, the fact that they would actually care. They put care into making a decent movie, not just an easy cash grab like Mousetrap was, right? And so now it's time, Derek. It is time for
the final roll.
Number 1. Here we go. The final roll of the evening. Let's go.
The final butter roll.
Well,
I think you're going first.
That's a nat 20 versus Derek's 4. All right. But strap in, folks. It's time for Isaac to get on his high horse about The Substance, directed by Coralie Fargiat. She is a I don't know what to say about her. She did a beautiful job. Obviously, 5 out of 5 stars on my Letterboxd review for this. This movie is an expulsion, not an explosion, an expulsion of insanity and impressive effects that will blow your mind. But somehow amidst that, we have underneath that a very grounded and truthful tragedy about our main character that makes this a perfect film for me. This is a savage takedown of impossible beauty standards in our youth-obsessed culture. Like, it is just truly, it is through the right lens, the right people have the mic in the situation. I truly adore what they have to say in this movie, and it is not quiet about it. It is not subtle about anything that it does in this movie. Because after I walked away from it the first time, of course, I'm thinking about how, like, obviously, like we've talked about, the last 20 minutes of the movie, the third act is just balls to the walls insanity, and that's what a lot of people walk away with, remembering the gore, the effects of it, the crazy things like that. But thinking more on it, it is a tragedy about this woman who is growing, like, aging out of her industry. Nobody wants her anymore. Her value is purely tied to her age, how she looks, and now there's the hotter, younger model coming through in this. And so she can make a younger version of herself, and there is just this awful struggle between her trying to find value in her versus like hating the younger version of herself for having everything all that she wants. And there's this thing that they say over and over again in the movie: remember, you are one. There is no you and she. You are the same consciousness. You have to treat yourself as such. You have to respect the balance of the two. And that's really where things kind of start to hit the fan. You know, they do not. There is a absolutely heartbreaking sequence where she is trying to find Demi Moore is trying to find value in herself as the person that she is, and her age and her body, right after struggling so much with it, trying to go on a date with this nice man. And it is such a heartbreaking sequence of her staring herself in the mirror and hating the way she looks, trying to put on more, take some stuff off, change the outfit, and just not liking it. Just this in like horrible body dysmorphia, hating the way you look, like seeing this giant billboard of herself outside and seeing the younger, hotter her played by Margaret Qualley. Like, it is heartbreaking. It is a tragedy. It is really, really touching.
I mean, what is more upsetting if you're feeling upset about yourself? The only thing more upsetting about that is seeing someone pretending to be you, essentially, who looks hotter.
It's so hard.
Genius idea to encapsulate that
They did wonderfully. Also, just like a side thing, I just really wanted to mention, the design is perfect for the marketing, and the packaging of the substance is dead on. Like the music, the font. I actually watched an interview where
your font, man.
I loved it.
That shit.
They literally said, they were like, when we were looking for font, we looked for propaganda font is what they were looking for. And it totally works. Like, even the voice on like the customer service, like just this deep voiced man who talks pretty monotone like this the whole time. Like, it just, everything about it works. 10 out of 10 here. Yeah. But Coralie is not afraid to say what she wants to with this film. Subtlety is not an element of it, and it never needed to be. For too long, I think women and female filmmakers have been forced to be more reserved and quiet, but the substance is feral. That is the way that I would describe this. Yeah. It is feral and loud about the point that it wants to get across, and thank God for that. Thank you, Coralie, for making these points, for getting this out there and saying things that should be said, right? This film has no shortage of blood. I'd say it has blood by the bucketful, but that would be an understatement. Oh, yeah. It's bloody and gory by way of a fire hose, honestly. Almost literally, I'm saying that. Just an utter repulsive and shocking display of viscera and effects and blood that completely blew me away. Truly remarkable work. It is simply relentless in the lengths it goes. You don't think it has the balls to go where it does, and then it keeps going and going with it. I thought movies like this died in the 80s with directors like Brian Yuzna in like Reanimator and From Beyond. But no, it is alive and well here, and it is just a masterfully done film. Just purely 10 out of 10 work. This could not be shaken from the number one spot for me. Nosferatu almost got in there for me, but I could not deny there also. Ask Derek, my reactions, literal physical reactions to this movie cannot be denied.
No, you were climbing up on the chair.
I was sitting there and like cackling to myself. Yeah.
I mean, we were all losing it. It was like a drug. Yes. It gave us a high.
And maybe it's because we saw it late at night, but I sincerely could not keep myself from like cackling to myself about like, holy shit, they really did all of that. Like that was just impressive, remarkable, like a movie of the year. Like, wow, goddamn, it's wonderful. Fantastic. And so now, Derek, your number one movie.
Yeah, because I mean, it wasn't The Substance, that was my number two.
Yeah.
So my number one movie, I have been back and forth on this a lot. I mean, a lot. The Substance was up there for a good solid month.
But I feel like this one has been pretty consistently up in your number one.
It has been up in my number one, and it is my number one movie of the year for all movies of 2024 as well. And that movie is I Saw the TV Glow, with a 5-star rating from me, from Jane Schoenberg. A teenager just trying to make it through life in the suburbs is introduced by a classmate to a mysterious late-night TV show. And boy, oh boy, does that even scratch the surface.
No,
Not
exactly.
at all.
Like, trying to describe what this movie gets into, describing the plot to it, would take too long. Like, you just have to see it.
Yeah. So this movie, I wasn't sure the other day. I was like, hey, I'm going to rewatch it just to make sure that this belongs in the number one slot. And let me tell you, it does. This movie takes being a kid, takes finding your identity, because everyone in their life finds their identity, right? Like, at some point in your life, you know who you are, and you need to move forward your life as that person, right? Whether that is the person you want to be, or whether that is the person you're choosing to be. And this movie takes that and makes it horror. And it is definitely, it's a trans allegory. I personally am not trans, but like, it resonated with me in a different way. And I wrote in my most recent review of the movie on Letterboxd that, like, someone who says that if you're, that movie's for trans people, you're ignorant and you're wrong. And that is a dismiss of people who are actually struggling and people who need a movie like this. This is the most important movie I think I've ever seen. This movie brings me so much comfort, but also discomfort at the same time. I'm going to just read this verbatim.
Yes,
I, like many others.
He wrote a beautiful review of this movie.
I, like many others, have always been a stranger to myself. It's part of why I resonate to things like the Truman Show so heavily. This feeling of, like, floating through a different world is just reality. It has been my reality my whole life. And now that I'm an adult with a career, a growing family, I am comfortable to say that. I'm comfortable in I don't know who I am. And a lot of my life has been, like, searching for meaning and, like, having the loss of religion, loss of myself in that is something that I felt very alone in. But what I Saw the TV Glow does is it takes those fears and makes you not feel alone. Because in order to write a movie like this, you had to feel those feelings. You had to be someone in those shoes, right? This movie is scary. I will not tell you that this movie isn't scary. This is horrifying. Like, there's a good solid 20 minutes of this movie that makes you stop breathing and just feel anxiety to 100%.
It is hard to get through. That is
Yes.
one of the things that I mentioned about this movie. Like, this one sincerely made me feel claustrophobic, like I could not breathe.
Yes.
There are some hard sequences to watch in this one.
There is-
but also important. you
Oh,
know?
absolutely. And this is from my first review. I said, there's a scene towards the end of this film where the main character is seen screaming while those around him are just idly bystanding. I've never in my life felt so desperate for something to stop. Not because I was scared of uncomfortable, because I've been him. And I'm going to, like, get emotional here, but, like, this movie elicited that response from me. That scene, and there's I could go on and on about this movie. There are so many scenes, especially on a rewatch, where I was like, that is so real. Like, taking something like this and making it fiction was so genius. We have all been there. Even if you are someone who's like, I don't have anxiety, I don't have depression, I don't deal with that kind of stuff. You have been in a position where you have been alone. You have been in a position where you are in a crowded room, but you are alone. And this movie was so smart about how it made you feel those feelings. And not just about that, also about loss. Like, trying to find yourself, yes, that is a major plot of the movie, and trying to understand who you are and trying to be okay with that and trying to feel that acceptance when it's not there. But also loss and losing someone who lets you feel that way. Losing that one person that you belong to you. Everyone's felt that. Everyone has felt that. And this movie belongs in everyone's watch list. Expect to be shocked. Expect to not understand it. But another thing about this movie that I've seen a lot of people have negative reviews for it as well. And it does definitely, I mean, it wasn't even in your top 10, which nothing against you. This movie just resonates different with different people, right? And I think that's part of the beauty of it, right? Like, for me, this resonated as all of the ways I just mentioned. But for other people, it's like, well, maybe I'm not who I think I am. And this movie is helping other people deal with that. Like I've
That's
seen
an incredible thing to think. Like
Yeah.
it is making people think about those
Yes.
kinds of things. It is also changing lives,
Yeah.
like in a huge way.
there have been people who have said, I came out to my family after watching this movie. I changed my life because of this movie. There were aspects of this movie that literally changed my life because I was that kid for a lot of my childhood, and seeing that through the lens of someone else is so validating and so cathartic and so beautiful. But also, we can talk about it. There's a couple really scary shots in this movie.
Holy shit! Yeah, there's like this like overarching villain, and because it's about these two that like bond over a TV show, right?
Yeah, it's basically Buffy the Vampire
Yeah,
Slayer.
it's called the Pink Opaque, I think is what it's called. And in that show, there's this horrifying character of like this Moon Man, and he's horrifying. Like that
dude.
guy put the fear of God into me.
Yeah, man. I can't get over it. I really, after watching it a second time, was like, no, this is absolutely my number one, because no movie this year, or really in recent memory, has made me feel the way that this movie felt.
It
Made me
hits. Even me, who does not necessarily directly relate to a lot of those things, it hit. I felt.
Yeah.
And it felt heavy.
Yeah.
It really, really hits you.
And I think anyone who's like, oh, that movie didn't make any sense, or like, no, that movie was stupid. Like,
That's the point.
that is the. I mean, yeah, that's the point. I'm gonna read
No,
one
they
more.
missed the point, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna read one more thing for my review. It may not make sense, but I don't make sense, and I like movies that don't make sense. Probably for that reason. These movies make more sense to me than other things because I can find the meaning for myself. And that's what I want. Let me grow and let me change from the movie, because that's really what all art is all about, right?
Damn, that's a beautiful way to end our little
There it is.
year wrap up here.
There it is.
And that's us. That's where we're sitting. Those are our top 10s of 2024. It is, God, it's been a good year to be a horror fan.
Yeah.
And I'm really eager to see like what we come to in the future. There's some more movies that are going to be coming out that I'm looking forward to, some of these more than others, but like there's some good stuff coming out. There will be a Wolfman remake in January by Lee Whannell. It's his remake of the classic Wolfman story. Just like he did with The Invisible Man, it's going to be a little bit more of a modern retelling, so I'm curious about that.
Interesting.
Also in January, we've got Screamboat, which is another shot at the public domain Mickey Mouse in a horror setting.
Why?
This one is starring David Howard Thornton, though.
That's true. I'm in on that. I'm into that.
It gets a point for that, so we'll see how that one ends up. We might end up watching it for this podcast, you know. The Monkey coming out in February. Oz Perkins back with a supernatural horror movie based on a short story by Stephen King.
Yep.
That could be really fun. We've got The Bride, ! Coming out in September, should be. These dates may change. Maggie Gyllenhaal is actually going to be directing this one. It's going to be her take on a Frankenstein tale set in 1930s Chicago, starring Christian Bale and Jesse Buckley as the monster and his bride. That's
weird, man. I'm here for it.
I'm a fan. Obviously, I love Frankenstein as a story, as a character, all of that kind of stuff. This one, I'm curious to see.
I'm into it. Are you kidding me?
It's gonna
Christian Bale and Jesse Buckley?
Yeah,
Take
it's
me.
going to be
me
really
there.
interesting. And then finally, the one that I am most excited for, I'm going to start levitating off the ground when
Oh,
I
there
see
you
this
go.
movie, is Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. Date unreleased yet, when it's going to be coming out. They just said 2025 at some point.
Yep.
A movie nearly 50 years in the making from the man who loves Frankenstein the most, Guillermo del Toro. I am so excited for this one. We've got Oscar Isaac starring as Dr. Frankenstein and Jacob Elordi playing the monster, which is really interesting to me.
Calling it now. If this movie doesn't get delayed and comes out next year, it's going to be your number one.
Absolutely, it's
Calling it
probably
now.
going to be, and that's the
Be
thing.
my number two.
I want to try to be fair, but like this one is just gonna skyrocket to the top. He's my favorite director, my favorite story. I'm very excited for that. But so like that's just a taste of what's to come in 2025. Thank you so much for joining us
Check
here
out
to
our
listen,
other stuff.
listen to us ramble on about all of our stuff that we're doing here, all of the movies that we enjoyed. Thank you for if you've listened to any episodes this year. It's been a blast, and I'm really excited to do some more next year. We're not going anywhere, you know. We got plenty of other stuff in the works. We got some other side things we're working on as well that we can't talk about yet, but expect some more content from us from in 2025. But yeah, so thanks for joining
That's
us.
it.
As always, Garfield be with you. Have a happy new year.
And
Stay spooky.
Goodbye.